Because once someone starts talking, I think it's the up and down volume, so it's cutting in and out. I think that's what
I will. Check, check. Test 1, 2. Check, check. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the monthly meeting of the City of Des Moines Zoning Board of Adjustment. This board has the power under Iowa law and the zoning ordinance of the City of Des Moines to hear and make decisions on requests for variances and exceptions from the regulations in the zoning ordinance, to review conditional use requests, and to consider appeals from any decision of city staff in the administration of the zoning ordinance. The members of this board are citizens of the City of Des Moines. They have been appointed to this board by the City Council. The board members are volunteers, and they receive no compensation for their public service. I'm going to take a moment here to introduce our board members. On the audience's right is Tom DeCio. Next to him is Dave Gare. Next to Dave is Rhonda Cedillo. On the audience's left is Heather Ann Rowe. Next to her is Kuku Sa. Next to him is Marlis Jones. I'm Mel Pins, the board chair. I'll introduce city staff that will be assisting us today. The board's legal counsel to my left is Gary Guidelock. City staff that will be presenting and answering staff questions here on the left, on the desk row, Frank Dunn-Young, Senior City Planner, Bert Drost, Deputy Planning Administrator, Catherine Drejas, City Planner, Chris Heilskove, Zoning Enforcement Officer. Assisting us with meeting moderation and some of our special effects is Monica Vasquez, down here just in front of me. I'm going to cover the meeting's procedure here, give you a little background on how this works. Don't be concerned or afraid of when you get to speak or anything like that. We will take you through the process. But I will give you the background on how the board functions. First and foremost, the Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-legal board. This hearing will be conducted within the procedures and format as authorized by Iowa law and this city's ordinances. This meeting is open to the public. The meeting is being recorded by both audio and video for a legal record of these proceedings. The board members have each received a copy of the agenda and the staff recommendations. And if you're in the audience and didn't get a copy of today's agenda and the staff recommendations, they're in the little black box here right by the door. As soon as I'm done with my opening remarks, feel free to step up and grab one. The board is required to base its decision on each item upon the criteria established by law for the type of relief sought by the applicant. The law applicable to each case is identified in the written staff report. If the facts, as determined by this board, demonstrates that the criteria established by law for granting the relief has been satisfied, then the board must grant the relief. Otherwise, the board must deny the requested relief. Each item will be announced in the order that it appears on the agenda. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda, which is our first section of the agenda, are not planned to be individually discussed. Rather, they will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report, unless the appellant does not agree to the conditions that have been recommended by staff, or if there's an individual in the audience or a member of this board that requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda so that a full discussion on the matter can occur. And I'll come back to the consent agenda here in just a couple minutes, and again, I'll take you through that. For the regular portion of the agenda, city staff will first give a brief overview of the appeal. They will present any written comments that have been received prior to the hearing. Then the applicant or their representative will be allowed up to 10 minutes to present their appeal. We'll then move to the public comment portion of the hearing for that agenda item. Anyone that wishes to speak in support of, in opposition to, or even in neutrality of an appeal will be allowed up to 5 minutes each to provide their comments. And again, I'll give everybody plenty of notice when it's time to receive comments. This will be their one and only opportunity to address the board regarding the agenda item at hand. Once all concerned citizens have spoken, the board will then ask any additional questions of staff. And lastly, the applicant will be given 3 more minutes for a rebuttal or other closing comments if they so choose. All speakers are requested, and frankly, they're required to speak only from the podium here at the center of the room and begin their presentation by first giving both their complete name and address of business or residence as appropriate, in the event that you may need to be contacted for legal notices related to the outcome of this appeal. All speakers are requested to remain courteous and to focus their comments only upon those facts that demonstrate whether or not the criteria established by law has been satisfied. Speakers are also asked to ensure that they are respectful of time considerations. If necessary, the board chair will limit further comments by a speaker if they exceed their time limitation. The board chair will then close any further public comment on the agenda item. The board members will immediately deliberate the request here, and you will hear all that. We'll make a decision on the appeal here today. Please know that it takes at least 4 affirmative votes of the 7-member board for any zoning appeal to gain approval. If your appeal is approved today, we ask that you'd wait until at least about 1 week from today's hearing if you need to contact the city's Permit and Development Center to obtain any necessary building or sign permits that are related to your appeal. This will allow the decision of this board to first be documented in the form of a decision and order that will be provided to you and city staff for the record. Any appeal that is approved by this board must be implemented, constructed, or otherwise utilized within 2 years of the date of the decision by this board, or such approval shall expire. Finally, the decisions of this board can only be appealed in the Iowa District Court. If you believe you have been harmed by an error made by this board, your only remedy is to seek relief through the court within 30 days of the filing of the board's decision and order. If you believe the zoning regulations applied by this board are wrong, you may petition the city council to change those regulations, but only for future considerations. Any material written or otherwise used today as part of any presentation is part of the permanent record. So if you plan to present any photos or documents or drawings, if you haven't given copies of those to staff already, you'll have to give them appropriate copies before you leave today. You may also contact city staff after the hearing if you'd like a copy of anything presented. Just a few quick housekeeping items. We'd ask that you please avoid any undue conversation in the audience so as to limit distractions during the hearing. Doing a great job. Also, please ensure your cell phone has been silenced. So far, so good. And if you need to use the restroom, you can just walk through the doors. You do not have to go back downstairs. There are restrooms just past the staircase on your left by the elevator. Once the agenda item in you're interested has been completed, you are welcome to leave the hearing, or you can stick around and listen to our other items. We will have a 5-minute break in the meeting around 3 o'clock today, if we still have a hearing in progress at that time. So that's the background, but again, we will go over our process and procedure here as we go through the items, so don't worry about that. The first thing we will do is we're going to look at our consent agenda. Items 1 through 8 have been recommended for approval by city staff, subject to the conditions that staff have presented. So this board has been requested, in essence, on consent agenda. We will not hear these items. We'll consider them for approval as a group, unless there's somebody here in the audience or a member of this board that wants us to fully discuss any one of these following 8 items. So what I'm going to do here is list items 1 through 8. The first one is a conditional use by the City of Des Moines through Des Moines Waterworks in the vicinity of 1550 Grays Parkway for construction related to a whitewater river course. Is there anybody here in the audience that would be opposed to this board granting approval of that requested use? If so, just raise your hand for the moment. Okay, seeing none. Item 2 is a request by Casey's Marketing Company at 3527 Indianola Avenue for some exceptions related to installation of an illuminated canopy sign and 2 additional signs. Anybody here opposed to us granting item 2? No hands, okay. And items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are also related to Casey's at other locations in the city relating to exceptions for allowing the number of signs and some lighted canopy signs. To keep things moving here, is there anybody that would be opposed to us granting approval for those signs in items 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7? Seeing no hands, the other item we have on consent is also Board of Waterworks Trustees. Item 8, vicinity of 408 Fleur Drive, expansion of the Des Moines Waterworks campus to include construction of a building for some warehouse space. Anybody opposed to our board granting that special conditional use? This is related, when we get into any public facility, we have to review those briefly. So we have items 1 through 8. I don't see any opposition from the audience. Board members, if you have any questions or concerns, please say so. If none, would there be a motion to grant approval of the items on consent agenda, items 1 through 8? Moved by Tom. All right, second by Rhonda. All those in favor say aye. All right, that motion carries 7-0. This is the easy part. So items 1 through 8 have been approved. If you're here for those items, you'll get a copy of your decision and order within the next week. So if you were here for items 1 through 8, you can enjoy part of your afternoon yet, back at work or home, and we'll just let the room clear for a couple seconds, and then we'll proceed with our regular portion of the hearing. All right, so our first item on the agenda for today for full presentation and board discussion is item 9. That was continued from our last monthly meeting. It's a request for a variance and conditional use for use of a tenant bay for a liquor store at 3921 East 14th Street. And Frank's going to give us the background on that.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. Frank Dunyoung, City of Des Moines planning staff. As mentioned before, this item was originally on the agenda for November. It's now in front of us. It's 3921 East 14th Street. The title holder is CS Family Properties, represented by Corey Steiner. The business would be operated by Golden Dragon Liquors, represented by Elizabeth Jimenez Lopez, and the proposal is use of a 12,000 square foot tenant bay for liquor store use with the sales of alcoholic liquor, wine, and or beer. The tenant bay is within 500 feet of a property that contains a licensed child care facility. The appeal requires a variance of the provision that requires any liquor store use in MX3 district selling alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer to provide at least 500 feet of separation distance from the property line where any church, place of worship, school, public park, or licensed child care facility are located. Additionally, conditional use for a liquor store use selling alcoholic liquor, wine, and or beer for off-premises consumption in the MX3 district being the second appeal. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the property. This property is approximately 34,000 square feet. It's a multi-tenant building at the southeast corner of East Fleming Avenue and East 14th Street. You can see the property that is encircled in orange, and then the tenant bay is somewhat highlighted there at the very south end of the building. There's another photo. And here is the layout that they're proposing. The corner being down here, main floor to the rear. And got some photos here, I'll just zoom out. So this would be facing north across the front of the property. This is a close-up of the tenant bay. And then we've got some context of the building facing south across the property. It's my understanding that there is a bar and grill, contractor's office, and potentially a tax preparer office and a vacant tenant bay as well. Another picture of the front of the building as they would propose to have signage on the corner. And just some images that they provided for context of what the facility would look like. And so staff did send out notification to the neighborhood association, to the title holder and property owners within 250 feet of the property on November 26th. Now, MX3 allows a liquor store use with the conditional use so long as the licensed premises meets the required separation distance. For this use, it must be 500 feet from the lot line where any church or place of worship, school, or daycare is located. They must also meet 1,320 feet separation from a property line of where any limited retail sales, fuel station, liquor store, tobacco store engaged in the sale of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer are located. For this property, they do not meet the criteria for granting the conditional use which requires a variance, as they do not meet the required separation distance. In order to demonstrate that they have an unnecessary hardship to be granted a variance, the appellant must show that the subject property cannot yield a reasonable return from any use permitted by the subject zoning regulation. They must also demonstrate that the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances, not of the owner's own making. And they must also demonstrate that the use or construction authorized by the zoning variance will not alter the essential character of the area. Now, per section, City Code Section 134.6.7.8, if the board were to grant the variance, the City Council must review the board's decision within 30 days. The City Council may remand the decision back to the Board of Adjustment and would delay the decision of the board for 30 days. They may also choose not to review the decision, in which case, after 31 days, the board's decision would become final. And if the council declines to remand the decision back to the board, the decision becomes effective immediately. Now, if they were to remand the decision, it would go back to the board at the following hearing. And at that time, the board could make a determination to affirm their initial decision, or they could withdraw the initial decision and issue a new decision. Upon completion of that hearing process, the board's decision becomes final and effective upon filing. And so staff believes that the appellant has not satisfied the criteria for granting a variance. An unnecessary hardship has not been established for the land in question, as it can yield a reasonable return from the uses permitted on the property. There are many uses allowed in an MX3 district. So it's not merely sufficient to show that the value of the land has been depreciated by the regulations, or that a variance would permit the owner to maintain a more profitable use. So staff recommends denial of the requested variance to a separation distance requirement and the conditional use for a liquor store. If the board were to grant the variance to separation distance, the decision must be reviewed by council likely on January 13, 2025. We did get communication from the neighborhood association, which I've pulled up in front of you. And here's the consent map that when we mailed out notices, we had folks that responded back. We have a couple comment cards in opposition to. We've got a communication of the neighborhood meeting summary right here. And then we did get communication that appears to be neutral too. And that completes the presentation for staff. Do you have any question for staff?
Board members, questions for Frank? I might have a couple. I always let my colleagues have a shot first, but feel free to jump in here. Go ahead, Cuckoo.
Frank, are child care centers allowed within 500 feet of liquor stores?
I don't know that there's anything that would preclude a child care center from going in anywhere that they would get authorization to. It happens to be a separation distance requirement, same as a school, public park, church, place of worship, that if you were to want to open a liquor store, that you'd have to meet those separation distances. And so ideally, interested parties would look for properties that meet those separation distances.
Thank you.
So related to that, it is a matter of precedent. If the liquor store is already there, a daycare center could locate next door if it wanted to, and the liquor store can continue to operate. But if the daycare center is already there and a new liquor store wants to come in and occupy a property, it has to have the separation distance, correct? Related to that, are you aware of what the most recent past use or uses had been in that tenant bay that's up for question here? Any idea?
I do not actually, so.
That's fine. And the separation distance, if I'm correct here, and just to emphasize it, the 500 feet, it fails that variance test because there's either a daycare center, place of worship, park within 500 feet, correct?
That is correct.
Did you show us where that location is in relation to this building on the map?
I did not.
Can you give me an idea? You know, is it a place of worship? Is it a daycare center?
It would be a daycare
A
facility.
daycare facility.
And it would be a private in-home daycare facility.
Okay. Sorry to make you poke around there, but yeah, but you generally know what direction it is from
Yeah,
this location?
It would generally be southeast, or southwest of the property.
Toward what I call the Seneca Mobile Home Park down that way?
You got it.
Okay. I think is it Radio City? Or used to be? Anyway. But also more so, there's a larger distance radius of 1,320 feet, which is a quarter mile, correct? Where if there's already another retail location for alcoholic liquor, let's say a convenience store or another liquor store, it can't be within that radius as well, correct?
That is correct.
And how does it fail that test for distance?
It does not fail the 1320.
It does not. Okay, so it's just the 500-foot radius because we've got a daycare location nearby.
That is
Okay,
correct.
all right. I just saw the quarter-mile separation distance in the packet here. Related to the variance, and I just want to make sure I understand this clearly, with a variance test, the applicant has to show, and the board, within the criteria, has to determine that this location, this property, this tenant bay, there's no other possible use for it. The only thing that could go in here is a liquor store, so that's why we grant a variance. In general, that's what the city ordinance speaks to, is that correct?
That is correct. So without the variance, they could not yield a reasonable return on the property. So
Right.
They would need to meet all of the criteria associated
Okay.
with demonstrating a hardship.
And I know this was deferred or moved from last month to this month, but, you know, from square one, I'm assuming you guys discussed this with people that come into the counter or call or email, hey, here's the requirements, here's the variance test. It's pretty tough hill to climb, right? That's explained very clearly to the applicants?
That is correct.
Okay.
We will explain those, we'll explain what their due process is. And
Certainly.
what kind of challenges that they may have.
Okay.
It's my understanding that maybe they had gotten started before seeking this information.
Aha, okay. Yeah, as I always say, it's better to ask first than ask for forgiveness later. But just wanted to see kind of, again, from staff's perspective, explaining the variance. That's what you've done here. Okay.
Correct.
All right, those are the only questions I have. Any other questions for staff for the moment? Okay. All right, Frank, thank you.
One more question.
Oh, Cuckoo, yes.
Frank, how often is the board granted variances in situations like this? Is it something that happens relatively frequently, or is it exceptional?
I don't know that I could quantify it. It is rare because the hardship test is a difficult test to demonstrate that you've satisfied all the criteria. And so one of the big issues that they have with demonstrating it would be the demonstration of that they couldn't have any other viable businesses in there. And so with MX3, there are a number of other uses that could go into the tenant bay. And so it's not enough to that a liquor store would be more valuable. It would be a greater income generator. It's not enough to show that. So because there's so many other uses, it would be difficult to make that demonstration.
And with the comment cards, I missed this. It was pretty quick, but how many comment cards came back in support and how many were in opposition? I saw one neutral. Okay.
We did not receive any in support. The applicant themselves, they provided, they supported their project. But we received 2 comment cards in opposition. We received notice from the Neighborhood Association in opposition as well.
Thank you.
If anybody's trying to raise their hand in the audience, we will let you know when it's time for you to speak. So I don't want anybody to wear out their arm by having their hand in the air, so just hang tight.
Mr. Chair, could I
Yes.
answer Mr. Saw's question
Jump right
a little fuller, perhaps to add on to what Frank said? The Iowa Supreme Court has said on multiple occasions that variances should be granted, quote, sparingly and with great caution or in exceptional instances only. So I hope that would help to answer your question about how frequently they can and should be granted.
And Frank, another quick review for my recollection here. You know, we're throwing out separation distances from types of uses, whether it be other alcohol or whether in this case it's from a daycare center. This is in the city ordinance, which is our city's laws, to have this separation requirement because in essence the city council said we don't want to have an entire strip of alcoholic liquor sales, business to business to business up and down our streets. And related to that, we certainly don't want them next door, nearby, across the street from certain other types of uses that just really don't go together. So in essence, it was a way to zone or manage these uses almost by density because of a distance separation. Is that an okay editorial on that?
Sure. I believe, one of the things that's important to remember is it's to aid in mitigating some of the harmful impacts that could be had by a nuisance that has the potential over time to become a nuisance or have some nuisance behavior with that.
And I appreciate you making that point. I think most of us here, we'd go in, we'd buy our fifth of whiskey, and we would go home. But there may be other people who would not do that, and there's been seen to a degree there can be a propensity for nuisance issues at some of these uses. So keeping a reasonable separation, the city council determined we're going to have a reasonable law about that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a situation, even if we wish to support it, we couldn't for lack of meeting the separation.
So the council would have to change the city law or city ordinance for future issues and reduce that if people don't like the separation distance.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Anybody else with questions for staff? Okay. Thank you, Frank, for the lead-in. So the way the hearing works now, the applicant themselves or their representative, they have up to 10 minutes to present their reasoning for their variance, to ask us why should we grant this variance. So who would like to speak for the applicant here? We'll just need your complete name, address is appropriate, you got 10 minutes.
Name is Fernando Vega, resident of 1509 East 13th Street, 501-316. Real estate agent, representing landlord and tenant at this point. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I don't know if the staff has to present our arguments, but I have seen that they have not been presented. We do have support from the people not only who attended the meeting, but also for neighbors that have actually also been awaiting for the moment of which we will know if this specific liquor store will be opening. In terms of the history of this specific bay, the landlord tried with a hair salon, then a barber shop tried in. They couldn't make rent. I don't know if this is a marketing issue or a management issue. And then it later on became a paint shop construction office /office. So the landlord hasn't been able to get a solid tenant until a new lease was signed last September with intention of opening Golden Dragon Liquors with Elizabeth, who is here with her family, and in her due diligence in opening a liquor store, she spent several months studying boutique-style liquor stores that and also, parenthesis, I have read a couple of the postcards saying that they are concerned that a liquor store won't help with the criminality or with the cleanliness or the neatness of the neighborhood. The argument that the landlord and the tenant are saying is that that's exactly what we need to bring to that corner, is economic activity with a business that is a family-owned business. Des Moines residents, they own their home. The husband owns a framing contracting company, which is fueling funds and savings along with the lender, which has also seen a business plan in favor of this. So what we're saying is we understand the liquor stores could get a reputation, and the same thing with car dealerships. But what we are saying is that if the committee or the board is willing to read the arguments from the landlord and from the tenant on why allowing this business to start up here will not only bring economic activity, a light to that corner. If you sit on that corner, which we had to during the neighborhood meeting, it's a dark corner that attracts certain groups of people that are looking for a dark corner. And the proposition here is that we'll bring a local family to run a local shop that will like to educate people on different sorts of spirits, different sorts of options that the state of Iowa offers through their acquisition of liquor, and how their cultural and their family business is going to attract new sorts of economic activity, not only from Des Moines, but also from outside Des Moines, from all their family contacts and all the marketing that is being put in as a plan. So we believe that the arguments on why the economic hardship is there, not only from the landlord, which this is the fourth run trying at this, and this is a new landlord. This is I started representing only the tenant, but as I'm walking through these shells, which is this variance process, I'm now currently also representing the landlord, as I understand that he's a new landlord, frustrated with how difficult it has been for him to keep the property income on point. He's paying out of pocket. He's got a bar at the end, or at the end cap on one side, then he's got a tax preparation company which is leaving. They haven't paid rent for 2 months, so that bay is gonna be empty. So by not allowing the Elizabeth's family to come in and actually start a new life of business, it's gonna be really hard to uplift the property as a whole. The bar that is on the other end cap, it's very clean, serves food. We have been there many times. They are supportive of our project. You would think that they will be jealous, but no, they are actually supportive of our project. And I understand this is a hard topic because people think that liquor store will bring crime to the area, but what we're saying is the opposite. It's going to bring economic sustainability to the landlord, is going to allow the current lease to actually take place, and then it's also going to allow Elizabeth's family to flourish and put all her plans in practice. And as I'm going through this process, I understand that if this is not the location, Elizabeth is going to ask me for a location, and this is going to happen all over again. Big question is, until this meeting, I did not know that there is a daycare center anytime closed. The presenter, Frank, couldn't even tell us where it is. And we, as a real estate agent, as I'm driving around and as I'm looking for flags, no schools around, there is a Quick Start in the corner, but I mean, Quick Start is in the business of a gas station. I mean, if they have a liquor license, lucky them. But at the same time, we are not proposing to pour gas in this corner. We're proposing to create an experience, a boutique experience for international liquors, as many as we can get, because the diversity that we get in Iowa is not the best. But at least the service, the customer service that you will receive, the cleanliness of having more light, more cars, more traffic coming into that strip mall will also allow the landlord to lease the upcoming empty bay in between the liquor store and the bar. And who knows what kind of business we can attract there, but it's the presenter, Frank, is saying that all this other business can happen there. I mean, you cannot sell mattresses out of there. It's not enough space. What else can you do there if you already tried 3 different businesses? And grocery store, wrist wrap, $80,000 just to start thinking about it. And there's a grocery store across the street. And there's plans on 3600 also. There's also application to get a grocery store there. So it's just a difficult case for the landlord and for the tenant. And having said this, if this is not the time for Golden Liquor Store to happen at 3921 East 14th Street, you most likely will hear from us again, because how many places can we find that are specific where they can actually put a business that will flourish and will bring economic health to the area, which is much needed. Across the street, the restaurant already closed. This specific strip with Arby's next door being completely empty and nobody answering, even the brokers are saying that they sold it, but they don't tell me who they sold it to. We are trying, as people of business, we're trying to support this area. I live in 50316. This is 50316. I have a personal interest to make sure that for Christmas, instead of going to a big store with a big name, that I drive to a mom and pop shop, get the wine that I need to get, support a local business, converse, talk about life and the community with real people. I don't have to order on Amazon, and go back to my family activity on Christmas night. I mean, Christmas, that was my goal. Obviously, if you get to the point to actually reading the economic hardship and arguments why this variance has to happen, I'm pretty sure you will understand where the landlord is coming from, specifically the landlord is coming from, on why this is very important for this building.
I got 30 seconds left for you here. If you've got something you'd like to add.
Incredible how fast 10 minutes go, but all I have to say is that my experience in this process has been very frustrated. I have not communicated until this morning with Frank. The landlord was not included in the last communication. It's just very frustrating how it's December and we are still presenting when I understand these processes. I understand that liquors have a bad rep, but I think it would be the wrong decision if you don't provide the variance. Thank you.
Okay. Fernando, would you like to stay up here just for a minute? Doesn't count against you for time, but to answer any questions our board members might have for you. Mm-hmm. Board members, any questions? I've just got one or two brief ones here. You mentioned that the applicant or the tenant has already signed a lease for the
September.
spot. What does signing a lease mean? What does that obligate them to?
Well, since we realized, and this is partly my fault,
Mm-hmm.
that there was need for a variance, I just looked at MX3,
Yeah.
and I realized that it was commercial, and in my mind, there is no daycare
Okay.
facilities, there's no schools around, So landlord and tenant came to the agreement of paying rent, which is actually, this is the other reason why I'm supporting that this happens in this location, because I will not find a $2,000 a month rent for the tenant anywhere in Des Moines.
Yep.
So this is a deal for the tenant, and it's much needed for the landlord. So as I'm doing that, they come to an agreement. There hasn't been exchange of money besides the deposit. The first payment was supposed to be in October. Everything is in limbo right now as we wait for this decision.
And I don't need a lot of information on that, but
I wish to give every information
Yeah.
as
But it goes
possible.
to a point, I do like to reinforce for those watching on TV and the audience, before deciding you're going to open a business or build something in Des Moines, please check with city staff. They are the nicest people in the world. Sometimes they'll tell you stuff that you don't like, but they're very nice people. And if you say that you weren't in contact with Frank and you didn't know his position,
No,
you
I have no-
and/or the tenant asked this to be deferred from last month. So were you not already in conversation with city staff for more than a month prior to today about this variance?
No, I have to admit that all the requirements for the variance were well presented, and we were even told that the chances for this happening were slim.
Okay.
So that is correct.
Okay.
But we were surprised when we came last month to this meeting, and there were things that did not happen,
I think it was a notification, was it the notification
and
distance?
that's why it was pushed a whole month.
Yeah,
And
I
this
get it.
month has been
Okay.
a struggle.
I appreciate your patience, I understand your frustration. All right, thank you, sir. You can go ahead and sit down. So the way the hearing now works, is there anybody, the applicant has spoken, but is there anybody else who would like to speak in support of the applicant's request? If so, they'd have up to 5 minutes. Anybody else in the audience besides the applicant? Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak against the applicant's request? Again, they'd have up to 5 minutes. Anybody wishes to speak in neutrality, just something they'd like us to know about liquor stores? Okay? Just need your name, address, you've got up to 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Drew Kelso. I actually came here for a different
Sure.
zoning, but I happen to be surprised by this because I live at 815 East Seneca, so just out of the perimeter where this intersection is right near my home. And I can attest that, so I picked neutrality because I didn't come here with any prior knowledge or
Sure.
against or anything, but I do recognize that that space, I've lived at this my home for 11 years. It has been a revolving door. It's been a vape store of several kinds. It just keeps turning over. It has had no stability since I've been there. So to speak to economic stability and seeing a small business of a resident, I do see that would be powerful. Also, because I'm a very community-centric person, I would be curious to know if the child care center themselves have spoke against this, or if it was just something that happened at the perimeter, because I actually used to be the neighbor to the child care center. They moved just a couple blocks away, or are now the one in question, and in the past year they've been battling cancer and now has a different job. I don't even know if they will be a functioning child care center. So if this is a residual left over, just their address is tied to that, I would like to see if that's been explored.
You've got a good example of speaking in neutrality, so thank you.
So-
Yeah.
That's all I had to say.
All right, thank you, Drew. Okay, so applicant or representative, you can have 3 minutes for rebuttal or other closing comments. Unless the city staff or zoning enforcement have anything you'd like to add first.
I would like to clarify that the daycare facility is in the middle of the trailer park. And so that's, I don't believe it's the same one that he had mentioned, but the one we're looking at is in the trailer park.
And city staff, I'm assuming you know where these are because, one, they're registered with the state of Iowa.
That is
and you
correct.
verify that they are active and in business.
Yeah, they typically will get pulled from the list.
Mhm.
So.
Okay. All right. Is there anything you want to say in closing? I can give you that courtesy. You got up to 3 minutes. You can use it if you want. Come on, you'd have to come back up so we can hear you.
Yeah, I just appreciate everybody's work
Sure.
and time.
Yeah. Thank you, Fernando. Okay, we'll close the public portion and go to just board deliberation. So the 7 of us can discuss, and then we'll see what motions we've got. Any initial thoughts? Very good.
Well, he's very passionate, which is, you got to give it to him, but I really don't think he's proven the hardship. So that's where I'm at.
Other thoughts? Cuckoo.
Just the argument on alternative use, the argument on alternative use and the different iterations that have gone into that business. What happens to the property if this is not successful? Does it stay open? Does it become a blighted property?
I guess, we aren't business counselors here. He said something about $2,000 a month rent. Well, maybe the rent's too high. Maybe the business models that have come in there, their overhead's too high the way it is. Maybe they don't take care of the interior of the building as well as the tenant would like. There could be a host of reasons. But this could be a comic book shop. This could be a sports card collector shop. This could be a model rocket hobby shop. There aren't just 3 things that people have tried and they have failed. It could be a gem rock mineral shop. I mean, that's not up to us to decide what it should be. I don't believe it's up to us to decide, yep, they've proven no other use can be successful. Why would a liquor store be more successful here than the other uses?
And the reason I bring that up is it's up to us to decide or determine whether there's hardship, this financial hardship to the landlord, and
But-
if there are any
yeah.
alternative uses that can offset that hardship.
And Gary can help us here. I don't think financial hardship is the test. I think it has to be related to the land in question. Gary, can you help us a little?
And so I'm going to be referencing, some pretty recent Iowa Supreme Court language on this topic. It is an economic test in the sense that there's nothing that you could do in that property to yield a reasonable return. That there's no lawful use that can do that. And I mean, when the Supreme Court talks about this, they talk about what a difficult standard that is to prove. I think Mel has pointed that out, that there are potential other uses that might have gone in. There are other uses in this building right now that were shown in the documents. It's such a high bar to clear because you have to show that, and that's another point that I want to make sure that we're clear on. It's the applicant's obligation to carry that burden of proof to show that there's no reasonable return, there's no lawful use that you could put in there.
And I appreciate everybody's good thinking on this, and I know this is tough when we have to decide these things. But I think we should also remember, this board has granted plenty of conditional uses for liquor stores. But those liquor stores have met the requirements for the separation distance. So this isn't about being anti-alcohol. There are plenty of locations in Des Moines. There's one on Southeast 14th. They're building a new store. And we approved it here about 6 months ago. So it's not that we're against, having a liquor store somewhere. It needs to meet the separation distance because the Des Moines City Council has determined what the community's direction is for its character, not us as board members. Gary.
And I'd like to follow up on that specific point, again, referencing recent Supreme Court guidance on this issue. The Supreme Court has made it clear that this board's authority to grant a variance is limited. And I'm going to quote from the Supreme Court from 3 years ago. It is fundamental that the board may not legislate. it exercises only administrative and quasi-judicial power strictly within the limitations of both the state zoning the state code regarding zoning, which has the variance language in it, as well as the city code. So as I think Frank mentioned, there's been a policy decision made by the council with respect to the zoning ordinance when it adopted it. And this board is limited by the terms of the zoning ordinance itself, and the standards for granting a variance that are set by state law too.
Thank you, Gary. And that was Iowa Supreme Court as well?
Yes, I was referencing the
Okay.
Iowa Supreme
Yep.
Court.
Thank you. Other thoughts? Heather?
My thought is, I think that this is unfortunate. Fernando, I hope that your tenant can find a spot for it because proving a variance is so hard. And it's just a matter of it being too close to the child care facility. And that's just really unfortunate because it sounds like a cool idea. And I hope it works out somewhere. And I hope that someone's able to find a spot if this doesn't pass for that boutique store.
Okay, some good points. If anybody has any other thoughts, Marlis, I think you said that in general you agreed with the staff rec, but did you have an official motion there?
Would make a move to deny the request.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second for denial. All those in favor of the variance request, raise your right hand and say aye. Okay, and opposed? One. Okay, so that motion carry, Gary?
I just want to make sure we're very clear for the record. The motion was to deny, and I think I heard the chair say, if you're voting to support the variance request, raise your hand. I think it was the vote.
Oh, did I accidentally?
I think that's what I heard. I just want to make sure.
I hope I didn't say that, but yeah.
I heard, just to be clear, I heard the motion to be to deny the variance, and so that
Yes.
someone voting in favor of that motion would be voting to deny.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think I had said all those in favor of denying the request, but all those who, I'll just do the vote again. So we've got a motion by Marlis and a second by Heather to deny the requested variance based on the fact does not meet the variance test as noted in staff rec. All those that would vote to deny the variance request, please raise your right hand, say aye. All right, that's 6. Those opposed to denying, 1. Okay. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's a 6-1 against. Again, always check with the city first before you start signing leases to open businesses. But Fernando, for you, your client, the city is happy to work with everyone as residents, business owners, different backgrounds. Talk to staff about if there's other locations, they can help you understand what the districts allow, where the separation distances are, so that maybe you could look at opening this at another location not too far away. So I do appreciate you coming in and appreciate the discussion. So that concludes that agenda item. So moving forward here, I believe that brings us to item number 10. That's a request to amend a conditional use and an additional conditional use to expand an existing performance arts venue where the expanded use would include retail sales of wine or beer for off-premise consumption. And it's an appeal related to also some previous conditional uses we've already had for this location. So Frank will give us the background on this one as well.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board, Frank Dunyoung, city planning staff. And so the address of the property is 1163 24th Street. However, it includes 3 parcels, 1159, 1161, 1163 24th Street. The title holder of the property is Harvey Parks, represented by Toby Parks, who purchased the property 1159 in 2017, and then purchased 1161 and 1163 in 2021. The business owner is XBK, who is also represented by Toby Parks. The proposal is expansion of the existing performance art venue. It's approximately 2,900 square feet. It's located in the existing building on the property 1159 24th Street. And in a moment, I'll go to some photos and I'll show each of these properties. And it also, their existing conditional use also includes the 947 square foot patio on the property known as 1161 24th. And they are wanting to include a 759 square foot area within the existing building. It's a tenant bay in the existing building to the north on the property 1163 24th Street. The expanded area would include retail sales of wine and beer for off-premises consumption. Sales and consumption of alcoholic liquor, beer, and wine would occur throughout each of the premises. And so we are looking at amending, the appeal is to amend the original conditional use in 2019. That was amended in 2021 for another use selling alcoholic liquor, beer, and wine for on-premises consumption in an MX2 district, and then conditional use for a limited retail sales use selling wine and or beer for off-premises consumption in an MX2 district where up to 40% of retail sales would be wine and or beer products. And so we'll go through the premises. So here you'll see it's encircled in orange there. It's 3 parcels. The existing venue here is 1159. The patio is 1161, and then the tenant bay is in the southern half of 1163. And here is a view of the existing building, 1159. That's the existing other use arts venue, performance venue. Close up of the front. There's the patio. And then here we have the tenant bay that they are proposing to include as part of their expansion, and then their limited retail sales. And so here I'll take a closer look so you can kind of get a better description of what that layout is. Today it's this existing performance venue. Here's the patio. Over here, what they would be doing is 250 square foot area right here. This would be a limited retail sales use. And it would specialize in merchandise that is associated with the events venue, but it would also include packaged beer and wine. Any limited retail sales use that's allowed, it is allowed in a MX2 district. However, there is a 40% sales that could be derived from the sale of beer and wine for that portion of the use. The remainder of this tenant bay, approximately 500 square feet, would be more of a kind of an auxiliary space where there would be meet and greets with artists. There would be small-scale performances, poetry, spoken word, etc. Community gathering space as well in that remaining area. They would have some acoustical amplified sound that would be associated with the space. Let's see. Now, once again, to be clear, they are looking to have alcohol consumption throughout each of these spaces. So, in essence, folks who are at a show, they could carry their drinks over to the mercantile and buy the records, the music, the shirts, those types of things associated with it while carrying their drink there. So MX2 does allow the performance venue and the limited retail sales use subject to the licensed premises meeting separation distances as we had seen previously. This property has a separation distance of 150 feet from a place of worship, school, public park, or licensed child care facility. This use satisfies that criteria. And so staff recommendation is supportive, does recommend approval of the conditional use for the other use to allow alcoholic liquor, beer, and wine for on-premises consumption throughout each of the premises, and subject to the conditions. And these are conditions that were existing previously for the venue, and so really for the existing venue there is no change for that portion. For the limited sales, staff is also recommending approval of the limited retail sales use selling beer and wine for off-premises consumption. Up to 40% of retail sales would be derived, no more than 40% of retail sales would be derived from beer and wine products. And here are the conditions that staff has recommended for approval. And with all conditional uses, if at any time the zoning enforcement officer determines that the operation of a business has become a nuisance or exhibits a pattern of violating any of the conditions, the zoning enforcement officer could bring it back for reconsideration of the conditional use. And so we did receive comment cards. Here's the consent map. So you'll see one in opposition and a few over here in support of. Here's the comment cards. And they did have a neighborhood meeting. This is their notice. Apparently no one showed up to the neighborhood meeting. And that is staff's presentation. What questions do you have?
Questions for Frank? Frank, two brief ones. I think we approved this for the other use, performance venue, what have you, maybe up to 5 years ago, and alcohol sales for at least 3 or more. Any problems of any significance to date with the operation of that facility that you're aware of? Any neighborhood impacts of nuisance issues or anything?
We haven't seen a pattern of nuisance behavior or police calls associated with the premises.
And not to spend a lot of time on it, but didn't the city kind of get rid of its minimum parking requirements in certain neighborhoods with the ordinance change? People complain there's not enough parking.
Well, certainly parking is different than it was.
Yes.
handful of years ago. So certainly there are agreements that can be in place.
Right.
There's some counting for associated parking. Plus, this premises does have some parking to the rear of the 1163 parcel. And so the appellant could really speak to
Sure.
the quantity that are there and any other parking arrangements that they have.
I park legally in that neighborhood, but I have to be creative. That's part of an urban environment.
Yep, and this is a very active pedestrian area as
Yes.
well, so
Yes.
hopefully some of their traffic comes,
Sure, on foot.
yep.
All right, anybody else have questions for Frank? Okay, let's hear from the applicant. Applicant, you've got up to 10 minutes. We just need you to start off with your complete name and address as appropriate, and tell us what you'd like to do.
Yeah, thank you for hearing me today. My name is Toby Parks, owner of Harvey Parks Properties, owner of XBK, the music venue that it's located at 1159 24th Street. Ultimately, one of the reasons why we wanted to open this space, I'll set aside the mercantile piece of it, but primarily we get a lot of requests at XBK for community gatherings that they want to have in between, say, 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock whenever we have shows, and unfortunately that's when we're doing sound check for the evening's events. And so we wanted to use this space as an ancillary opportunity for community gatherings. We have a lot of events that happen in conjunction with Drake University, different types of community meetings, as well as trying to create other creative opportunities for the local creatives in Des Moines. There's not a lot of those. Unfortunately, we've lost several of them. And sometimes, as a music venue, it costs quite a lot of money to open our doors, and we wanted to create a space where there can be more community with the creative folks in town to come and, maybe trade songs and, write songs together and do, other things like that. While at the same time, if people are at XPK visiting or seeing a show, personally, and this is my own thing, I have problems when people like to chatter when there are quiet shows happening, and this will provide an opportunity for folks who may not be interested in what's on stage at an immediate moment to go to another space, enjoy their drink until the act that comes on that they really want to see. In terms of the parking, I didn't realize, Frank had mentioned to me this morning that there were a couple of folks that had concerns about parking, and I didn't realize where the property owners were, which seemed to be near the Drake properties. We actually have a parking agreement with Drake University for their properties over by the flower shop that's adjacent, and it looks like that property that was complaining is just south of that, so I think they may be thinking that some of our patrons who think maybe perhaps they're parking on Drake parking are actually parking in his lot, and we can do some things to alleviate that. Separately, behind the firehouse, the 1163 property, there are 8 parking bays that are already there that could be used for the mercantile during the day. We haven't really heard any complaints with parking, and actually, quite frankly, we've gotten a lot of support through the neighborhood and the community, and people really loving having the space there. To the extent of selling the alcohol, specifically wine and beer, we have very limited storage at XBK, and we have a lot of folks, like our general demographic is 35 and older, and we have a lot of folks that are wine connoisseurs, but we can only serve a limited amount that's actually at the club, so we wanted to have an alternative space for folks if they wanted to buy nicer wines. There's no really wine store anywhere near in the Drake neighborhood. I think Louis' Wine Bar or the grocery stores are really the closest by, or if you have to go down on Ingersoll. And then we're also working on doing a signature beer for XBK, so we wanted to be able to sell that in the mercantile if folks so wanted to purchase. But the intent is not to actually increase the overall occupancy of XBK, that building, or the facility is 277 occupants. The ancillary space is not intended to add to that. It's intended to literally just be an ancillary space for those 277 people to go between the two buildings. And otherwise, that's pretty much it. I think Frank did a really great job of outlining what our plans are.
Okay, questions for the applicant? Okay, all right. Well, great. We appreciate your remarks, and we'll see what the community thinks here with other comments. So we'll check back with you in a minute.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody here to speak in support of the applicant's request? Anybody wants to speak in support? You've got up to 5 minutes. Just need your name, address, and you've got the floor.
Hi there, my name is Alec Davis. I live at 644 26th Street, and I actually here to speak about something else, so I'm pre-introducing myself, but we just happen to own the business that is adjacent to XBK, Doco Pizza. And just because of a couple comments, I just want to say we've been neighbors with them for 6 years now. They're awesome. We've had no issues. We love them in the neighborhood. And then, parking, we do not consider it a concern. I'm part of the Dogtown Entertainment District Board, I guess you'd call it, and our goal is to create a vibrant, walkable district. So we really want to encourage people to find other ways to come to the district as well. So everything they're requesting, I think, is in line with what the neighboring businesses and community want. So we fully support this. Thank you.
Wow, those are the best and quickest top 10 comments I've ever heard. Okay, anybody else that wants to speak in support?
Hi, my name is Carol Maher. I'll write my address on there rather than doxing myself in a public forum.
I get it.
I'm here to support this request and to address the parking comments that were made. As a year-round, near-daily bicyclist, I would say that arriving at this site on a bike is quite easy, and there's adequate bike parking given near this site. Additionally, it's on a very well-traveled DART line, so I think we should encourage businesses such as this and speak up in other forms of transportation and ways to arrive at a site versus focusing on car-centric options. Thank you.
Also good comments. Thank you, Carol. Anybody else that wishes to speak in support of the applicant? Okay. Anybody that wishes to speak in opposition to the applicant's request for the expansion of the use? Anybody in opposition? Anybody in neutrality? Okay, seeing none, any further questions for staff? Okay, and the applicant can add anything they'd like in closing here. They can have up to 3 minutes. If they don't want to use it, they don't have to. Okay, you're good. All right, then we'll close the public portion, go to board deliberation. What do you think, folks?
Sounds great.
A couple of us were on the board when Dave was on the board with me when this was proposed, and I thought it was intriguing to start with. A very small location. They've done very well for 5 years. I understand the expansion of the use. It's less than 40% sales for alcohol, a little different standard. We're not looking at variances here. And to have another business owner, landowner, neighbor get up there and say how well this has worked and how it's added to the character of the neighborhood, wow, I can't think of anything better. So,
I can only think of positive things associated with this small business and that it'll add a lot to the Drake neighborhood and to Des Moines as a whole. So I would be wholeheartedly in favor.
okay. Do we want to make this official? Somebody want to make official motion?
I'll second.
Okay, let's let her make the motion. And I kind of want to do this for the record. A motion to approve what, why, and then somebody can second it.
I move to approve the staff recommendation.
To amend the conditional use and the additional conditional use request.
Thank you.
Okay. And,
Oh, I'll officially second.
okay, all right. So motion by Marla, second by Heather. All those in favor to grant the amended conditional use and conditional use request, raise your right hand, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, seeing none. All right, motion carries 7-0. Give staff about a week, and they'll stitch this together in a decision in order. And then if you need to apply for any building permits for remodeling or continuing your good work, keep at it. So thank you for coming in. Appreciate everybody's comments. Okay, that'll bring us then to item number 11 on our agenda today. Item 11 is a variance request and a conditional use request at 3614 6th Avenue. And Frank, you're going to give us the background on this one too?
Yes, sir.
All righty.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board, Frank Dunn-Young, City Planning staff. Item 11 is located at 3614 6th Avenue. The title holder for the property is 36th on 6th LLC, represented by Tim Bratfold. Property appears to be purchased in October of 2022. The business owner, Highland Underground, be represented by Alec Davis. The proposal for the property is use of a 4,400 square foot area within the basement of the building for bar use with sales of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer for on-premises consumption. The site is within 150 feet of a property that contains a place of worship. The appeal then is a variance of the provision that requires any bar use in an MX2 district selling alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer for on-premises consumption to provide at least 150 feet of separation distance from the property line where any church or place of worship, school, public park, or licensed child care facility are located. The appeal also for a bar use would require conditional use to sell alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer for on-premises consumption. Now, I'll go ahead and pull up the screen here. It is the T-shaped parcel here that's outlined in orange. The property is a little over 12,000 square feet. It's located on the west side of 6th Avenue, in between Clinton Avenue and Euclid Avenue. Here is the building exterior, and I need to get the zooming right on this. So here we go is a view of the front of the facade facing what would be southwest. This is directly in front of the building. And this is rear across the parking lot. So this would be facing actually north across the rear of the property. And then this is facing directly the rear of the building. And so here is a layout. I'm going to zoom in on this just a touch. And so here's what I wanted to show. Okay, so the facility is, the bar would be approximately 1,900 square feet in the basement. There is remaining 2,500 square feet of the building would be used simply for storage use. So it is unfinished, and it would be held as that until such time it were to change. The building is a two-story building. It's 10,000 square feet in size. It's currently going, as you saw in some of the photos, there is some renovation that's occurring. So the building's going through a full historic renovation, which will include first floor retail and second floor apartments, and then the parking on the rear of the building. The Highland Underground that will be located in this space would be a cocktail lounge basically, and they'd have a small area for performances such as jazz, stand-up comedy, and other community events. The space would not be a ticketed venue. However, the space would be available for private rentals. They do intend to have a small kitchen. However, food is not intended to be the primary sales generator. They would like to operate from the Tuesday through Thursday, 2 p.m. to 2 a.m., Friday and Saturday, 2 p.m. to 2 a.m., and then Sunday, 2 p.m. to 12 a.m. And then maybe the applicant could expand on how the rental, private rentals might work in conjunction with those hours or outside thereof. And here is just more context of the property. And then here is just a larger aerial. As you can see, there is a church use that is located on the north side of Clinton, and it's approximately 125 feet to that church use from the tenant bay, from the area that would be used for the Highland Underground. And so staff did send out notifications to the title holder and to neighbors within 250 feet of the property, as well as the neighborhood association. Just a little zoning history on this one. In November, this did go in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission for a rezoning from MX1 to MX2 mixed-use district. And then on December 9th, council did approve the rezoning of the property from MX1 to MX2 district, which allows the building to be used for eating and drinking place, a bar use, so long as the Zoning Board of Adjustment grants a conditional use for such a use.
And Frank, just kind of common sense logic here, because the MX1 district would not have allowed for an eating and drinking place such as a bar, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And so, this area is in a neighborhood node. It's a commercial corridor in the Highland Park area, multiple household residents, mixed uses within the node, some of which are a mix of commercial, restaurant, office uses. Just last month, up on Euclid, there was a bar that was granted a conditional use. It met all of the separation distance requirements and all the supplemental regulations for a bar use. And so because this property is within 150 feet of a church use, it has not satisfied the criteria for granting a variance and therefore granting a conditional use. As we had looked at previously, to grant a variance, you need to demonstrate that there is an unnecessary hardship. And so the appellant has to demonstrate that the subject property cannot yield a reasonable return from any use permitted by the subject zoning regulations. Failure to yield a reasonable return may only be shown by proof that the owner has been deprived of all beneficial or productive use of the subject property. They have to demonstrate that the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances, not of the owner's own making, and that the use or construction authorized by the zoning variance will not alter the essential character of the area. As I stated earlier in a previous presentation, any decision by the board to grant a variance of a separation distance requirement would be sent to the City Council for review. The City Council may remand it back to the board for further study, in which case the board's decision is held for a 30-day period. If the board does not review the decision becomes effective 31 days following the board's decision. Or if the council declines to remand the board's decision back to the board, the decision would then become effective immediately as of that council meeting. Upon remand of any decision from the city council, the board must conduct a rehearing on the matter for further study. The board may act to either affirm its initial decision or withdraw its initial decision and issue a new decision. Upon doing so and completion of the rehearing, the board's decision would become final and effective on the date of filing. The appellant hasn't satisfied the criteria for granting a variance to the separation distance for bar use. As stated earlier, a necessary hardship has not been demonstrated as the land in question can yield a reasonable return from the premises on the property. There are multiple uses allowed in the MX2 district. It's not merely sufficient to show that the value of the land has been depreciated by the regulations or that a variance would permit the owner to maintain a more profitable use. Even if the staff were supportive of the proposal, staff would have to recommend denial because the appellant hasn't met the separation distance requirement. We received several letters of support. This letter here is from the Highland Park Oak Park Neighborhood Association. NDC provided a letter of support. Neighborhood Development Corporation. And if I need to slow down or back up, please let me know. Invest DSM provided a letter of support.
Yep, you're doing just fine.
We received a letter of support from a business owner. And then we had multiple business owners, 4 business owners. The Slowdown, the Highland Bakery, Chuck's Restaurant, Shell's Fine Foods. And here is a consent map. We did not receive any comment cards in opposition to. What questions do you have for staff?
Questions?
I have a couple, just clarifications.
Yes.
So where is Chuck's Restaurant?
Chuck's
From this.
Restaurant is south. It would be south of the premises.
You have a good picture that shows
Yep.
that.
I think I've got a decent aerial. And so this is the area where the tenant bay is. And so there's a parking area, and then there is Chuck's. And then obviously at the other end at Euclid Avenue, there's Aqualand. And
So Chuck's is, I assume Chuck serves alcohol, but they're not close to that church?
well, they're not within 150 feet of the church, but they are a restaurant use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they are not a bar use.
Right. They don't have a conditional use because they're not considered a bar or tavern. They're considered a restaurant because alcohol's not 40% or more of their sale, or 50%. or their
That is-
sales?
That is correct. And
Okay.
if this site were a restaurant, but they had sales of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
There's a lot of churches on that street. The other thing, and maybe this doesn't matter anymore from the last discussion on parking, but, I know of people who have wanted to start businesses there, but there's no parking. So that's not an issue with this application.
No, well, Highland Park has come up with some shared parking agreements. Ironically, with the church parking that's there and with the Northside Library, as well as this particular business does have some parking.
Did you just say that they need a variance because of the church, but the church is willing to offer the parking?
Well, the church has a sign which offers, not specifically for them, but for the Highland Park area, community parking. So for businesses, for folks who are visiting the businesses in the area, they can go there and park. The agreement, the sign likely precludes the interest of this party.
Okay. It's also very interesting that the city council voted to change from MX1 to MX2, knowing exactly what they were doing, I would assume. Right? I mean, did they not know the rules we're supposed to abide by? I know that's a
Well-
question you probably can't answer, but you know what I mean? Am I embarrassing you, Mel? Sorry.
Oh, no, you are not embarrassing me.
Okay. Okay, it's just very interesting. And was this applicant the one that requested the change from MX1 to MX2?
That is correct. It would be the applicant, and I
So
think...
they probably gave the applicant hope. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm done.
I have a question. Didn't we approve a conditional use permit for an event center around there? Did we?
Wait,
The Chandelier, wasn't it called the Chandelier?
that is on Euclid, and it's...
Right, is it on the map, is it on this picture?
Is it the one at French Way Cleaners,
Yeah, it's...
bottom left, the white building?
Right, that's what, I know.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Yep. Correct.
It's at French Way, the former
Okay.
French Way? Oh,
Yeah, it's out of the, it's out,
oh, it's over in the,
it's just outside of the...
and Heather, your reference for that is what? Isn't that too close? Why did we approve that, or?
no, it's just interesting that it's in the neighborhood,
Okay.
around the corner, but that wasn't, it just seems like such a hard bar in Des Moines. I remember moving to Des Moines and being like, there's literally a church on every corner. And so it just seems hard for businesses that, to get shut down because they're 25 feet away.
Yeah.
I drove through here yesterday,
Okay.
and I started...
We're not in board deliberation. Do we have questions for Frank?
I do. Frank, what was prior there before the construction? What was that?
I would probably ask the
Applicant
appellant
can fill us in.
to answer that question. It's
Yeah.
my understanding, I believe that there was like a thrift or a vintage furniture.
Now, come on, let's go way back. When I was a kid, there was a branded department store in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Can't remember the name of it, but
It all depends on how far back you want to go. I've got one
other
question.
questions? Yeah.
Frank, this area is targeted for economic development, and the city wants to improve it, right?
this area is neighborhood pedestrian commercial, so there is interest in seeing certainly the buildings revitalized and have
But
more
there- I mean, there's
activity.
been intentional discussions, very focused on this area, and that we want to drive economic development. I didn't just dream that,
Yeah,
right?
that is correct.
Okay.
There have been efforts for streetscape, for I guess filling the vacant spaces that are there.
It's a targeted DSM, Invest DSM area. Right.
So Frank, I do want to reiterate one thing, though. It seems like, oh, we have this big reach of this big radius, and nothing can happen because it could be too close to something, by golly. So for the liquor store, it was a 500-foot radius, right? For a place of worship, daycare center, park, etc. This case, only 150 feet. What, 3 times less restrictive for the bubble that these things have to stay outside of for a place of worship, daycare center. Only 150 feet. Is that right?
That is correct.
3 times less restrictive. And yet if this church was to the south, its shadow would literally fall on this building, but it is to the north, so that can't happen. But, you know, we have to keep in mind this isn't a 500-foot radius here. We're just talking 150 feet. And this is the city's law. So I just wanted to reiterate, we aren't talking about 500 feet for variance. We're only talking about, you know, if you want to open a bar or lounge, just stay 150 feet away from these uses, and you're fine, generally speaking. Still need a conditional use, but you wouldn't need a variance test, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'll leave it at that for now, because we really want to hear from the applicant, as much as we like Frank. Okay. Applicant or representative of the applicant, tell us about your project, just reintroduce yourself, give us your address, and you've got 10 minutes.
Thank you all. My name again is Alec Davis. I'm here representing, this time, my business, Orbis Horatio Group. We're at 2330 University Avenue in Des Moines, where we operate Doco Pizza since 2018. Our ownership group has been, we have ancestry to the north side of Des Moines back to the late 1800s and have kind of brought some of that into this project. We're Des Moines natives and residents today. And a couple things I think I would just want to bring up. I know we have a lot of people that want to talk, so you know, we're one thing here trying to represent ourselves in good faith. We realize that you have the best interests of the city here, so you know, ourselves as serves in local boards and commissions. We have an elected representative in our ownership group. We're not looking to create a nuisance property or create anything that would be problematic for the city. That's not good for our businesses and reputations. In addition to Doco Pizza, which has been a neighborhood staple in Drake for 6.5 years now, and we do all sorts of dine and donates with local schools, donations to feeding pollsters and nurses. We've also done the Des Moines Beer Garden down at Waterworks Park, and that's allowed us to create like a community-driven space. We get a lot of positive feedback that it is, and we sell primarily beer, German beer there, but also bought some pretzels and some food. But it's it is a business that we sell alcohol, but it is, we get accolades for it being very family-friendly, dog-friendly, intergenerational. We get a lot of people that just come meet with their extended relatives and really enjoy the space. So we're looking to build things in the community that we think will support and grow it, and that's kind of how we got here today. We do understand, as we've talked about, that for the test of the 150 feet from the church, if you draw a line as the crow flies directly to the property, you get that. We would note that the actual location of the licensed premise of the bar would include, if you're a human, an additional travel distance inside the building and down the steps that would be greater than 150 feet. So we would argue that that would be something to consider. And it does include entering into the building into a vestibule space, down the stairs, and another door as far as separations from the community. So we hope that this would not have an impact in a negative way and hopefully be a positive thing. As you noted, we went through rezoning. We had unanimous city council support. They are aware of what we're trying to do and show that, that we have to kind of go through this process. But we've been working very hard. This is, and I know Tim will talk about this is a complicated project. It's a historic building renovation. I think to some of the questions of, a lot of times these projects don't chart linear paths, and we have to adjust and work as things come up. And so this is why we're here today, is to try and help keep this project going and see the redevelopment of this building that is a targeted economic development area. And then we would note that the groups that are actively working in this, like NDC and Invest DSM, we have their support. We've been working with them a lot. And then I think the other thing we wanted to note, within the hardship test and the use through MX2 specifically, what we would like to call board's attention to is specifically we're only talking about the basement level use of this retail space, which as a hospitality operator, I would argue is unique compared to any street level. And so we've tried to provide staff with examples. You can find numerous basement level cocktail lounges or bars. That vibe kind of works very well to that concept. Basement level retail, I am not really aware of any kind of traditional examples of that within the city, of somebody being able to do anything besides in that, a hospitality concept besides a bar. And as part of, being able to make the numbers work on this building and the redevelopment, having somebody that can pay a square footage that a cocktail lounge, because it's basically kind of the only way to make a project like this viable. So we do think that this is a unique circumstance that really there's, if you asked other hospitality operators, I think anyone would look at this space specifically in the basement and say that, yeah, that's about the only thing you can put in there. And would note too, while they did say, I think the basement is like over 4,000 square foot, a lot of that is like kind of non-conforming. We really only have about 1,900 square feet that we can operate with. If we try to do a kitchen concept, we'd need probably almost 50% of that to be the kitchen and storage and stuff like that, which really reduces the capacity. And there's just no way that, especially considering you don't have street level retail or storefront either, would not be viable. So we're here thinking that this is a way to actually get this portion of the building useful for the neighborhood, bring it as an economic driver, create a driver for more foot traffic, especially in the evenings. That's known to help increase actual and perceived safety when you have other customers coming up and down. So I think that's the most things I wanted to highlight. It's just that we're here to also answer questions. We have pretty much unanimous support from the neighborhood association, supporting businesses that would love to see this business thrive. We consider ourselves, even though it's relatively close to the church, obviously there is separation with the church or the building, the street, and we want to consider this building closer to these other uses that are in our kind of use case, like Chuck's and Michelle's that's going in, to hopefully create, and I think some of the other people speak to this, but a vibrant district again, knowing that it's a lot of things have changed. As the chair mentioned, it was Klein's department store. That's part of the reason the basement exists the way that it does. And it was a neighborhood department store, but I think not surprisingly that is not a viable economic business these days. And so really the only modern use case of what was the remnants of their basement level department store would be a cocktail lounge. We do intend to have food, but the distinction between, say, Chuck's is that we are very, realistically, we do not think we can meet the 50% threshold of food sales to qualify as a restaurant. Hopefully we'll get as close as we can, but that's just kind of the reality of the basement level concept. So I think with that, I'll take questions if you want. Otherwise, I know we have some other people who'd like to speak as well. So,
questions for Alec? Anybody? Alec, remind me, are you the owner of the property in the building?
No, we would be the tenant. So we have the property.
You would be the tenant.
Correct, and we have the property owner here as well who's going to speak.
Okay, so you aren't the redeveloper of the building?
Correct.
Okay.
We'd be the operator. So we're speaking as the operator of the concept, so we would be the day-to-day manager and responsible for all that stuff.
Okay, all right, got it. Thank you. All right, we'll check back with you in a few minutes. Anybody that wishes to speak in support of the applicant, you can come on up. I would just, as a reminder to help people with how our hearing works, keep in mind the criteria that the board can consider for granting the requested conditional use or granting a variance. I would say keep that in mind as you form your comments. That's the most helpful for us. So who would like to go first? Okay. And again, we just need your complete name, address, and you've got up to 5 minutes for your comments.
Good afternoon. Tim Bratvold. I am the property owner at 3614 6th Avenue, and appreciate you allowing me to come and speak today. Would it be acceptable for me to show a photo?
Yep, that's fine. You'll just have to give staff copies of those if they don't have them already. And they'll have to flip a switch there, so that'll show up for you. But you got a good start.
Thank you. So, to your point, I wanted to focus on no other use working in the space and functioning successfully. Historic buildings present a unique space that are not always attractive to today's retail market, but we have to make the best of what we can. This lower level space is a perfect example of that. No other commercial business or retailer is going to be successful in that space. They all require street level frontage, visibility that this space does not offer. And we've talked to other retailers prior to engaging with the Highland Underground who continued to be met with constraints preventing users from utilizing this space, such as visibility and accessibility. The lower level of the property is really, at best, storage space in most scenarios, and storage rents really do not support the renovation costs of a project such as a challenging, small-scale, historic tax credit renovation. A unique speakeasy underground concept does present a feasible occupancy option and meets the financial needs that support a redevelopment like this. The neighborhood has worked so hard towards becoming a destination. We finally have an operator who is willing to help create the destination retail that has been strived for. And there's only so much retail space in this neighborhood. And with this use activating non-street level retail, it'd be a significant enhancement. This being a destination for the neighborhood would continue to drive traffic to support other surrounding businesses, which with the letters of support, I hope that has demonstrated their interest in that additional support. Regarding the economic hardships, there was a misunderstanding with the application. I did not realize that I needed to submit the financials and pro forma and that information to demonstrate that. So I wanted to take a second to discuss that, which aligns with all of historic renovation projects. This building has sat blighted and underutilized for well over a decade, and I don't think anyone would argue the importance of preserving the historic fabric in our neighborhoods. My wife and I were willing to take on this challenge as we saw the surrounding revitalization efforts, and taking on a historic renovation like this is critical to the continued rebuilding of this neighborhood. I purchased the building a little over 2 years ago and have been working diligently ever since to identify sources to get it to this point of feasibility. After obtaining 6 different levels and layers of financing and sources and tax credits and incentives through city and state incentive programs, the project still barely meets its debt service coverage ratio with the Highland Underground's above market rents. Obtaining a market rate lease out of this inefficient basement space is really the differentiator that it took to make this project become economically feasible. The tenant is intending to serve food in some capacity, but as Alec had mentioned, they're unsure as to what levels they would meet, and we wanted to be transparent through this process to share the intentions and the uncertainty of the demands in the neighborhood and in this area. Additionally, this will not be a club or a rambunctious bar. It will be a high-end cocktail lounge that welcomes community and families for gathering with light music and entertainment. The operator has met with the church. The church has informed us that they do not oppose the use, but due to their religious designation, they cannot sign a letter regarding alcoholic use. As Alec had mentioned, from door to door, from foot traffic, it is roughly 180 feet of walking distance. And just all historic tax credit renovation projects come with uncertain economic hardships. 2 months ago, when we were getting into the building, we identified a structural wall that was failing, which created a $70,000 hardship to the project. And so these projects continue to be challenging, but they're so important to our neighborhoods to revitalize these and bring additional traffic and economic activity. And we've really had a hard time getting any additional interest in someone who's willing to pay a market rate lease for this lower level space.
Okay, are those your comments?
Those are my comments.
Okay, all right. Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming up to speak today. Anybody else to speak in support? Come on up. Just need your name, address. Got 5 minutes.
All right. My name is Emily Jones, and my husband and I have owned Chuck's Restaurant at 3610 6th Avenue. adjacent to the future site of the Highland Underground location for almost 11 years now. The Highland Park, Oak Park neighborhood has seen a lot of new renovations in the last 5 years and continues to do so. It has been exciting, but also very daunting. New businesses have tried to move in, and each one has encountered many issues, whether it's been grease traps, sewer lines, zoning, permits, or even financing. Even our renovations hit many roadblocks across the way. Gosh, why do you guys make me nervous? I'm like sweating now. I've been fine the whole time. For all of us old anchor businesses, we must have new and exciting businesses open and prosper in this historical district. 10 years ago, we were the only one that was open at night. We have seen a tremendous growth in small businesses during the day, but it's time to continue that into the night by adding more restaurant and lounges to keep this district alive. I dream of the day people come up to Highland Park to spend the day and night and popping around from shop to shop. Give me a second, I'm shaking. The idea of allowing this variance to add in a cocktail lounge will only help all of the businesses in the neighborhood. I have said for the last few years we would love to open if other businesses would during the night or even the weekends. More businesses in the area will only help all the current ones to exist. It has been a real struggle as a small business owner over these last 4 years, and I would welcome a business like this one as my neighbor with open arms. I've been wanting to open our back patio room as a late night jazz speakeasy for years, but with no other businesses, it is hard to attract people for just that one spot. I believe a space like this, or like these guys are proposing, would help make our district a destination spot. The city of Des Moines has invested so much money into this neighborhood to revitalize and bring life back to us. This use is a result of all of the dollars that have been invested in the neighborhood and all of the neighborhood businesses. We need your support to make more excitement to this bring more excitement to this neighborhood. This use will create a more sustainable business district and such as a Highland Underground. This use will create a more sustainable business district, and as a business owner next door, I would really appreciate you supporting the momentum we've worked so hard to develop in the area by allowing this variance. Please consider allowing this new business the variance they need to open and add life to our historical district. Thank you.
Emily, I want to thank you for your well-spoken comments. I also want to thank you for your dedication and determination in your neighborhood. What you and your husband and some of your business partners have done for that neighborhood is just phenomenal. So, and I know you had to weather COVID in the middle of all that too, so thank you. Okay, anybody else to speak in support? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Drew Kelso, and I am the owner of the Slowdown Coffee Co., which is at 3613 6th Avenue. I am here in support of the Highland Underground. Echoing a lot of the things that have already been said, the momentum of what's happened in the district has been pretty amazing these last 4 or 5 years. I mean, in 2020, there's hardly anything up there, and then this past Small Business Saturday, we were recognized as one of the top places to go to support small business. So I think that is a reflection of the type of stewards that have been in these shops running them, whether it's like Emily or myself and many of the others, Cha-Cha's. You've seen historic spaces like Chuck's and the Highland Bakery not go away but double down and reinvest. We haven't really displaced any businesses in the area, but we are really short on existing spaces to grow. With a lot of these spaces, they do present challenges being an older building. They're very deep, very old, come with a lot of issues, so it doesn't really fit for everybody. So seeing a creative solution like this go into an empty space can help us maintain this momentum and provide a much needed nightlife that does not exist up there. We see just tremendous amount of foot traffic in the last few years. My cafe is almost always full, but in the evening it goes away, and I would love to see that part of the neighborhood start to grow. And I think it's going to take unique opportunities and vision like this to keep it going. And again, if we're going to get down to the technicalities of the 150 feet, it's 125 feet to the line, but like to get to the actual space, you're going to add more. So I feel like it breaks that 150 number pretty quickly, in the sake of keeping such investment and momentum going.
Thank you, Drew. Anybody else to speak in support? Come on up.
Good afternoon. I'm Ed Kirkman. That's Elizabeth Kirkman. We're the owners of Chacha's Highland Bakery at 3615 6th Avenue, which is directly across the street from the Klein Building. I'm not going to parrot everything that Tim said, but he's 100% right. Drew's absolutely correct, as well as was Emily. There is 0 foot traffic up there at night. I'm a retired Des Moines police officer. I can promise you I worked that neighborhood in the 90s. And I can also promise you that we're open 24 hours a day, or we have somebody in our business 24 hours a day. We're well aware of what goes on up there at night, and it's not pleasant. We don't have any foot traffic that's positive to our neighborhood at all, and the church doesn't either. I would love to see this business prosper. I understand it's a bar. I'm not going to parrot that it's 180 feet or 150 feet. We have our liquor license right across the street. Again, we sell food. I think this will be a very welcome addition to the neighborhood, having additional foot traffic, and maybe it'll cut down on some of the undesirables that are just roaming around, breaking into everything at nighttime. I really don't have anything else to say. I appreciate your time. I'd love to see this thing pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Anybody else to speak in support? Anybody that wishes to speak in opposition? Anybody to speak in neutrality? Okay. Being neutral is popular today. Just repeat your name, address again.
My name's Toby Parks, owner of a property at 1159 24th Street in the Drake neighborhood, 21163 24th Street. Neighbors with the operators of Highland Underground, who also own Doco Pizza. And I just wanted to say I was not anticipating speaking on their behalf today. I didn't even know that we were going to be here together, so happy accidents. But I will say, you know, there were a lot of corollaries between the Drake neighborhood and the Highland Park neighborhood, and I think we can see some of the great improvements that have happened in the Drake neighborhood since these operators happened to open up Doco in the neighborhood. As their neighbor, I can say that we're so grateful that they're there, along with a lot of the things regarding security and safety. They're such, you know, they're open up until, like, almost until the time that we close at night at the club, and it's actually added a lot of safety for the folks that, again, with the walking and pedestrian traffic that we have, really helps keep people feel safe in the neighborhood. Additionally, I would say that, you know, they are such great community partners. As Alec had mentioned, not only is it that they are business operators, but they do a lot of donations and community work with local schools, nonprofit organizations. And I see it firsthand when we have nonprofit organizations at our venue. 99.9% of the time, Doco is giving them free pizza. So I would just say that, you know, with all of the benefits and what we're seeing happening in the Drake neighborhood and what we're seeing in the development of Highland Park, I think these guys, if anybody are going to open a basement speakeasy, I would trust these gentlemen more than just about anybody else. So, thank you.
Thank you, Toby. All right. Anybody else neutral? Okay. Seeing none, do we have further questions for city staff? Or zoning enforcement, city, anything you feel we need to add? Okay. Alec, you can have up to 3 minutes for closing comments if you want. If you feel you've said what you want, that's fine. If you would like to defer to him for 3 minutes, I'm fine with that. Come on up, I just need your name and address.
Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Austin Baith. I live at 701 19th Street here in Des Moines. I'm a business partner with Alec. I'm here. You know, folks ask me, you know, wouldn't it be easier if you just go into some strip mall in Ankeny or Waukee? You know, don't have to deal with churches right down the street. And I say, well, yeah, maybe, but we're Des Moines people. You know, we want to develop something to make those folks from Waukee and Ankeny come here and go to Highland Park. And I know the folks who have spoken before me have already demonstrated, I think, a lot of the economic reasons of why this makes sense for this particular space. And I'm hoping that you are all feeling, you know, some of this momentum that this neighborhood needs this. And I hope you join the unanimous vote of the City Council who voted to rezone this with the exact intent for this to go into this building. And I'm learning, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a doctor by training, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm hearing the legal precedent and the things that you all need to satisfy with the law in order to grant this variance. So I'd like to highlight two things very quickly. The two issues here are one, this distance, and two, economic hardship. The distance, as the crow flies, if we're dealing with crows, yes, we might be insulting them with our bar. But if you are a human being, we went in 5 degrees of weather, pulled out a measuring tape. I think one of our partners even jaywalked, so it's not even a full with the law walking. And even cutting corners is 180 feet to walk down the steps into the entrance of that basement. So that's one, is that this actual distance is far greater than actually the 150 feet that's required. Number two, I think Tim really illustrated economic hardship here well. And as the Supreme Court is suggesting, we need to demonstrate an exceptional circumstance. The exceptional circumstances here are, as this is a decrepit building that's been in disrepair that needs a lot of investment in order to fix up. And finding a lot of issues along the way, Tim has had a very hard time finding tenants who can pay the rent that's necessary to rehab this building. He is already under contract with this building. If he does not generate the income as expected, I'm worried about his economic well-being. We're not in this for profit, I'll tell you. Going into hospitality is like a non-profit work, even though you're supposed to generate profit. We're doing this out of labor of love. And so we ask you to help see that we are doing our best despite all of the economic forces against us, high interest rates, high inflation. These are the exceptional circumstances that the Supreme Court says need to be met in order to grant this variance. It's here. This is the example. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Okay, well, that makes a good way to transition, so we'll go to board deliberation here. We had one member that recused themselves, so we've got 6 of us here. So let's start off our discussion here. What do you folks think? Thank you.
I'm going to wait to listen to others.
Okay. That's a good response. I want to wait to listen to others. How about this side of the table?
I don't know. The idea, that I appreciate people willing to go into this area, but I've kind of watched Highland Park develop over the last 4 or 5 years, and I can't believe, I just wonder, is a bar just low-hanging fruit? We can just go after that business first and bring a bar in? I mean, the variance law is the law for a reason, and it's to protect places like churches and such buildings, and those people that invest their monies in those buildings. So I don't know how, I don't believe you've overcome the variance issue with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're still within this, in the bubble, and I don't see it.
Oh. Dave, Rhonda, anything? I'm not trying to pick on you. If you don't have anything to add for the moment, that's fine.
I live in this area, and I think that would be a really nice
Yeah.
adding to it,
Sure.
but the church being so close.
Yep. We have approved many bars in MX2 districts with conditional uses, with rules. So, hey, like a driver's license for the teenager. Hey, you got to watch what you're doing. You're still a bar. You still sell booze. But when we've done that, we haven't had to meet a variance test. And this is a small neighborhood, but yet it's a fairly large neighborhood. There would be plenty of places here, hopefully, to open a bar that's not within 150 feet of a place of worship, school, daycare center, park, etc. This is the city's law. This is not our law. I've said this before, I don't make my decisions on if I like somebody or don't. I don't make it my decision about who is applying, I make it about what they're applying for. The reason you're asking for this relief is because you've seen what the city ordinance says. You have to meet the variance test, and you have to give your reasoning why. The variance test says the land in question cannot make a reasonable return. This is a two-story, one-story with part of it, two-story building. It has a basement. So to use the variance test that, well, because I can't do what I want in the basement, I need a variance. That's not the land in question, that's part of it. That'd be like saying, well, I got this 50-foot square closet, I just can't figure out a use, I need to have a speakeasy in it. I'm not trying to beat up on you guys, but I tell you what, in everything I do professionally and civically, I've done everything I can to support this stuff in Highland Park. I don't know any of you personally, but I've done a lot of stuff with policy and procedure outside of this board to support this neighborhood. But I can't do it with what the city council has given us. They're like a parent that gave you a rezoning approval, but now you got to go to the other parent and really ask for the keys. I don't like that. That sets us up too. But what I've said before, when I read these preambles every week or every month, my members get tired of it, staff knows what I sound like, some of you in front of me a lot get it too, but listen closely. If you believe the zoning regulations applied by this board are wrong, you may petition the city council to change those regulations for future considerations. So if you don't agree, if you think 150 feet is far enough away, what's the magic number then? Should it be 100? Should it be 50? Should it be next door? I don't know. That's the law that we have to work from. So board members, I like this proposal. I like what they want to do. I like where they want to put it. I like speakeasies. But I have to look at our criteria, which is the variance test. And I don't like to be the mean guy, but it does not meet the variance test. I saw a press release about this. They got some IEDA tax credits. I don't see a discussion about a bar. I saw a discussion about retail and, and upper story housing. Great. So I'd love to see a bar here, but the way the city ordinance works now, there's a place of worship nearby. And I think that's a good thing, by the way. I'm not trouncing on churches, and I'm not trumpeting churches, but they're part of the community fabric too. So I can't support the variance request as it's presented. So I'm up for further discussion, but good, bad, or indifferent, I'm going to recommend denial of the requested variance for the separation distance for the bar use. Just to keep our discussion moving. Dave?
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Heather?
I mean, this is hard for me because I feel like it's a windowless basement. It's really hard to activate that space. And like, we're not business advisors, like you said, we're not here to speculate on what could go in. But as a business owner, I can't think of anything that could go in that would make money, that would return the kind of rent that the property owner is looking for. They've put all this money into a building. It would enhance the vibrancy of a neighborhood that really needs that. And so, in my estimation, I feel like this could pass the variance test. But yeah, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a board member. I feel like if we were to ever give a variance, this would be it for me.
Very well put. Others?
No, I agree with that. And they've talked to the church, and the church said we can't sign anything that says we support this or agree with it, but we're okay with it. And it's not a perfect world, and I don't agree with all the rules that the city put in front of us, and we do go against the city council. And the fact that this thing it's 180 feet if I walk down underground, the fact of the matter is they need this to make the financial stack work on the project. And we've got people that have proven that they know how to do stuff. They're revitalizing a neighborhood. If this thing gets to be a nuisance, we can go in and take it away from them. So I'm all for giving them a chance.
Dave's got a good point. We could take it away from them.
And I tell you, I don't think they're going to mess this up. They've got too much money invested. And as a city, and as a board, we need to be willing to take chances with some of this stuff. And if it doesn't work, okay, I took a chance and it didn't work. Shame on me. Well, I'm not afraid to take a chance. We got a lot of smart people sitting out there that have put a lot of effort into this. So I'm for it. And I'll make a motion.
We've already got a motion on the table. And that motion is for denial, but that would take a second, and that would take a vote to approve the denial. Correct, Gary? Okay, I just want to make, for the record, since it's already a motion on the table, do we carry that out first to see if it has legs?
I would really have to check some Robert's Rules of Order because it wasn't seconded before the other motion was made.
Okay.
If you want me to look into that, I can. I'm happy to do it. It will just take a couple of minutes.
I don't want to put the spot on Dave, but since there was a motion on the table, I would ask if we could consider that motion first. But yeah, let's just go ahead and pause this for a minute or two. And we'll put Gary on the spot. And do we
Chair,
have some
you mentioned a break at 3 o'clock. Would
Gary,
now be a good
that's
time
great.
for that break?
Yeah, I think
Let's
we're
do
going
a
to take a 5-minute break in the hearing, and we'll re-adjourn here just after 3:20 in a few minutes. Appreciate everybody's consideration. I always say that I want to make this as fair and equitable for all our participants, appellants, community members, property owners. So, in speaking with our attorney, Gary's going to give us a little background since, in essence, we had, I could say, two competing motions on the floor. So, Gary?
I feel like a little bit like a referee coming off of instant replay. There was no second to the chair's motion, so that motion was not properly before the body prior to the time Mr. Gear's motion was made, and then an opportunity for a second was not given at that time. So I think at this time, if there is a second to Mr. Gear's motion, then that should be afforded at this time.
I'll second Dave's motion.
Okay, and for the record, let's make this clear. Dave, what is your motion?
I don't know, help me word this so that it makes sense, because I feel like I'm stuck in the weeds here.
Well,
I want to
yeah.
give them a chance to run this business.
So the requested relief at this time is for a variance to the separation distance requirement. So that would be the requested relief. It sounds like that's what you're asking
Yes.
to grant at this time.
Absolutely, and I'm very comfortable saying that because the church has agreed to it. They just won't write it down.
So you're making a motion to recommend approval of the requested variance to a separation distance requirement and denial of the conditional, and not to deny the conditional use for bar use, correct? And Heather, you're seconding that motion.
I am seconding that motion.
Okay, all those in favor to grant the requested variance to separation distance requirement, and do we consider the conditional use, or should we separate that?
I think those should be separated because the conditional use can't be granted unless the variance is granted first, because one of the conditions that has to be satisfied is that the zoning regulations are met as separate from the conditional use.
And I believe Dave and Heather's intent was for a motion to grant the requested variance to the separation distance, correct? Right. Okay, so all those in favor to grant the requested variance to the separation distance requirement, raise your right hand and say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? That's 2. It takes 4 votes to pass. So, you got your variance. Okay. So.
And now the conditional use would be relevant, I think.
So, since we're still in closed session here, since we have granted a variance to the separation distance, we can consider the conditional use for a bar use. And while staff has recommended denial, In the staff report, I'm not sure if they had this listed, but usually there's a list of 10 to 12 routine conditions for the operation of bars and taverns.
Bert, you've got that in your pocket, right?
Yes.
The Boy Scout.
And I don't know if staff, could you put that up on the screen? Okay, Frank, in general, hang on, just stay up there for a second. Okay, so Frank, these are kind of your standard requirements, generally speaking, about the business, maintaining decent character, keeping litter picked up, not being a nuisance, all that stuff, right? These are 8 conditions?
That is quite typical, yes.
Okay. And generally speaking, although, a lot of this was the variance angle, in any of your discussions with the applicant, had you ever provided something like this to them that they would have said, oh, yeah, if you do grant this to me, I would be able to comply with these conditions? Do you have any of those discussions? If you didn't, that's fine.
We did.
Okay, all right. Then I'm going to ask the applicant to come up to the podium for a moment, either Alec or Austin. Alec, there's 8 conditions here. If we were to consider granting a conditional use here, would you be able to reasonably comply with these 8 conditions?
Yes, just reading through just to double check, as Frank mentioned. We didn't really get to
That's
this
fine.
level of discussion, so.
This might be a little bit of a surprise, but these are generally conditions that we have for any conditional use for a bar tavern use.
Yeah, I think that we wouldn't have any issues with any of those.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so with that clarification, Tom?
Just point of order. Because we have heard that the church wouldn't sign anything, but we haven't heard from the church. What happens if somebody from the church says, we never said that?
Well, we can't compel some, well, yeah, I'll let Gary.
The church would have received notice of the hearing today, and they'd have an opportunity to participate in today's hearing. And this, for due process considerations for the applicant and everyone else, this is their opportunity to be heard. If they've chosen not to be here today, I would say they've waived that opportunity.
Okay, so we've already granted a variance here. Subject to discussion, would anybody want to make a motion to grant a conditional use subject to the conditions present? If so, speak.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Dave and second by Heather to grant a conditional use request for a bar use at this address subject to these 8 staff conditions. All those in favor of granting the conditional use request, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 1. Okay. Well, that motion carries. So.
There's 5.
Yeah,
You did.
yeah, it was 5 to 1.
5 to 1, okay.
Yeah, because we got 6 of us out here. Yep. Yeah, so I can't get hung out to dry on the variance thing. I'm fine with the conditional use. So, hang on. Now, staff will talk to you after the hearing, but because a variance was granted by this board, it does go back to the city council for their review. That doesn't mean that they overrule this board, but it just goes back to them for review. But staff can talk to you about that. So, appreciate everybody's patience today and everybody's good investment in the Highland Park neighborhood. You guys are awesome. Okay, we'll move on then to item number 12. Yes, and Mr. Saw can return to the hearing at this time. Oh, there he magically appeared.
Yeah. I thought he went to the restroom, and I'm like, ooh.
All right, so next up to bat is a conditional use request at 310 Court Avenue, and Bert's going to cover this one for us.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Bert Drost, planning staff for the City of Des Moines. The request before you is a conditional use for an other use selling alcoholic liquor and wine and/or beer in the DX2 district. We consider it an other because it's not a restaurant or a bar. So the zoning ordinance provides 3 categories of alcohol sales for on-premise consumption. There's restaurants, bars, and then other. And so in this case, the other is an assembly and entertainment use. So the proposal is to use approximately 8,000 square feet of a former restaurant space for an assembly and entertainment use. In this instance, the proposal is for a comedy club. The subject property is 310 Court Avenue. You probably remember it from 2 months ago. We had a proposal for a conditional use for a bar, and at that time that conditional use was denied. But again, it's the same space, the former Spaghetti Works restaurant on the south side of Court Avenue between 3rd Street and 4th Street. Here are some photos taken from, we use the same photos as the previous case, so it shows the existing patio out front as well. And here's the layout for the comedy club. If you remember, at the October meeting, we talked about these 2 studies that were done. There's the social city assessment, and then there's the future forward downtown plan. Both of these documents talk about the need to have a mix of entertainment options in the Court Avenue area, not just alcohol-centric entertainment. Again, I don't need to rehash that previous hearing, but the reason it was denied for a bar was that a bar is the alcohol-centric use that there's enough of already on Court Avenue. So we were hoping to get more, I guess, diversity in entertainment options on the Court Avenue. So fast forward 2 months, we have a new proposal on the table for a comedy club. Staff does believe that this criteria for granting the conditional use permit have been satisfied. As I said, the Court Avenue district really is intended to have a mix of entertainment options, such as this proposed comedy club, as well as some bars and some restaurants as well, and I guess any other uses we might see. So we have recommended approval of the conditional use. The first condition, I think, is the most important, that any sales or on-premise consumption of alcoholic liquor and wine needs to be accessory to the primary assembly and entertainment use of the premise, such as a comedy club. And then the rest of the conditions are more or less standard conditions. So again, we have recommended approval of the conditional use. I'll go through the public input we received. We have this letter from the Downtown Neighborhood Association in support. I believe the Neighborhood Association is here to speak as well. And then as far as comment cards, we did have several come back in support and then 1 or 2 in opposition.
Okay.
And I didn't mention it, but the ground floor of this building is a condo unit, so it is owned separately from the residential dwelling units on the upper levels of the building. So everybody who owns a condo in the building and adjoining properties were notified. And this is one that was in opposition.
Okay.
And there's an email we received in support. And then this is the summary of their neighborhood outreach. So again, that concludes my presentation. Again, our staff recommendation is in support. Just I want to be very clear that it is subject to the first condition that any sales of alcohol needs to be accessory to an assembly and entertainment use and not a bar. So, any questions for me?
Dave.
Do they have a current location in Des Moines already?
They were operating on Walnut Street at 15th, but I think that has closed. So I don't know that they have an actual location at the time, for the time being. I'll let the applicant explain.
Okay.
So Bert, with item 1, and sometimes number 1's most important, you referenced it a couple times. You mentioned that the sales on-premise consumption of alcohol should be accessory to the primary assembly and entertainment use. I'm assuming that means if there's not an evening where the comedy club is open, it's not open as a bar or tavern. Is that correct?
No, we understand that there'll probably times where the, like either before a show, after a show, over the lunch hour, maybe there will be times where they have some food service. And so we have, I guess, zoning enforcement officer has determined that that would be still accessory to the primary use of the property as a comedy club. So those incidental food and alcohol sales before and after shows and would.
As an example, if they would come before us today, Hoyt Sherman Place, they probably sell alcohol before, during, and slightly after a show, or certainly the Des Moines Performing Arts Center, what we call the Civic Center.
Right.
They sell alcohol as well, but they're primarily an assembly entertainment use, correct?
Right.
Okay. Gotcha. Any other questions for Bert? Okay. All right, we'll come back to you in a few minutes. All right, applicant or representative of the applicant. I think everybody's had enough time here today to see how the hearing order goes, so just need your name and address. While Bert's getting that, if both of you plan to speak, you've got 10 minutes to share between yourselves. I'll just need both your names and addresses appropriate.
Thank you, everybody. My name is A.J. Simmons. I'm one part of Teehee's Comedy Club. We're based right now out of 1440 Locust, Suite 216. And this handsome young fella to my right is Dave Bowman, the other half of Teehee's Comedy Club. I was going to take the approach of saying where we've been, where we are currently, and then where we're headed to give you an idea of Teehee's Comedy Club. We were up until June on Walnut Street. We chose to depart from that space mainly to focus our time and resources on coming into Spaghetti Works. So if you'd indulge me, I'm going to do a quick reading in third person, not to be annoying. Since the spring of 2022, Teehee's has brought some of the best stand-up comedians from across the country into downtown Des Moines every weekend to entertain and evolve the artistic offerings in our city. As one of less than a handful of comedy venues in the entire state, we have sold over 30,000 tickets to customers from around the world on our little corner of Walnut Street. As legacy music venues began to close around the area, we invested in an auxiliary PA system, new stage, and storage facility to re-engineer our venue into a viable live music space. We regularly provided a home for regional and local musicians of all genres, many genres which were underserved in our current venue landscape. We supplied a space for the likes of Iowa Stage Theater Company to facilitate their script readings in front of a live audience, and the variety show community, which brought performers of burlesque, drag, magic, poetry, and all other manners of expression through our doors. We joined forces and organized countless events with local businesses, nonprofits, and charities such as Central Iowa Shelter and Services, our previous neighbor, Capital City Pride, Black and Bold Specialty Beverages, and many more. We are a well-documented, consistent, and committed business dedicated to the flourishing of art, expression, and humanity in Des Moines. Here's just a fun slide for the people that don't like reading as much. Over 800 exciting shows in about a 2-year span, over $30,000 invested into various audio, lighting, and stage equipment to accommodate all art forms, and over $50,000 in paid advertising spent to promote the performing arts coming through our club and in the city of Des Moines. We also had programming and entertainment, mainly free, basically Sunday through Thursday, at least 5 nights a week, every week for over 2 years. So that's where we were, or where we've been. These are also some of the collaborations: Des Moines Art Festival, Des Moines Girl 8035, Young Women's Resource Center, Capital City Pride, Latinos in Action. These are just a handful of the communities that we collaborated with and nonprofits. So where we are, in the interim, since we didn't have our own brick and mortar anymore, we took on Teehees on Tour, which was our fun little spin of taking our comedy shows to new customers and local businesses to increase foot traffic, increase their sales, and bring a little fun to neighborhoods that normally wouldn't have things like that. We also were loaning infrastructure such as our sound equipment, production expertise, and photography marketing resources to support local venues and live entertainment around the city. And then also we are purchasing the old Spaghetti Works building. And for our hopes and dreams, where we plan on going, you can see here in the PDF, and I have a printed out one I can give to them as well. A multi-room comedy club, including a full bar and food service. Blueprints courtesy of RDG here in Des Moines, one of the best in the business. We have $4.1 million projected to be invested into the acquisition, remodel, and preservation of 310 Court Ave. This space will include homages to Spaghetti Works history in the community and comedy in Des Moines, from preserving the sign, woodwork within the space, stained glass, as well as potentially naming the main room, the theater, after local comedian Willie Farrell, who started at Spaghetti Works back in the 70s. We'll be a nationwide comedy destination for performer and customer experience, programming quality, and historical significance. We also are projecting roughly 20 full-time equivalent jobs created, $700,000 in estimated wages paid out annually, and approximately $800,000 in estimated purchases from local vendors. And I think that's just about it in a nutshell. Try to keep it tight.
Okay.
Yeah.
AJ, you want to add anything?
Dave?
Yeah, my name's Dave Bolton.
Or Dave, sorry.
Yeah, you're
AJ
fine,
Dave.
you're fine. I got the gist of it. I'm honored to be called AJ. He's better looking than I am, but to add to it, the $4.1 million that we're investing in that, a lot of that is the purchase of the building. The big thing here is the remodel. What's not included in the wages paid annually or the intended benefit to the community is the contractors that are going to be working. That's about a we'll call it $2.1 million remodel that's going to be going on. The blueprint you see in front of you, there's about, I'd say, $300,000 worth of furniture, fixture, equipment that we're going to be purchasing from Iowa vendors, mostly. We're trying to keep it as local as possible, both as service to the community, but also it's just our intent with most of what we do. I don't know what else to say to support the project other than that's what it is. We have some people here that are other business owners in the Court Avenue area, ranging from restaurants to other bars and stuff like that. I know many of them personally. I've met a few recently, and we're all pretty committed to kind of changing the vibe and the landscape of what Court Avenue is for the future. So that's about all I had to say.
Okay. All right. Well, would you gentlemen be willing to take a few questions in case we might have one or two?
I would love some questions.
All right. Board members?
Yeah, go
Dave.
ahead. Have you got all your financing set up? And the reason I'm asking is it seems like we get a lot of projects like this where you read about them and they fail because they can't get to the finish line because they don't have enough money.
Yeah, the short answer is no. I'm working with my bank currently. I'm personally putting in over $1 million of my own cash. Right now, it's just a mixture of getting them comfortable. If I have to take on a partner in the building acquisition, that's going to happen. this is going to happen one way or another. It's just a matter of timing. And
So you're not requiring a bunch of assistance from the city?
we haven't even asked for anything yet.
Okay, good
No.
for you. All right.
So I'm kind of a quick read on site plans. I'm an urban planner. It looks like you have a main theater area or a main stage, and it looks like you have a smaller theater performance area. Would you be maybe having sometimes even 2 shows at the same time?
That's our plan, is to stagger the shows. It's pretty standard with all the comedy clubs that have been able to execute and show longevity, is that you need to have a room essentially like what we had on Walnut Street, which is about an 80-seater that you can develop new talent and local talent in, get them to a place where they're able to start selling out a room that size. And then we're not only farming in national talent, we're also developing talent statewide and locally. And so then it's also an opportunity for private event rentals. Say someone wanted, shoot senior pictures, do a wedding reception. We've done all sorts of pretty weird stuff at the old place where, people, we had a whole high school come in and shoot their photos because the place canceled on them that day. So, it gives us opportunities to do that as well. And then up in the top left, at least when I'm looking at it, is a kitchen.
Yep.
I think we had mentioned food service.
Okay.
And it had been brought up a little earlier in this that some curiosity as to whether or not we're going to be open. We do at least want to entertain the idea of opening for the business professionals in downtown, maybe for lunch on like a Wednesday, little things
Sure.
like that. But ultimately, we're not there to sell Jell-O shots. We're there to put on great shows and enrich our community.
Okay. So, in summary, tell me what a typical Saturday would be like here at your establishment between 5 p.m. and 2 a.m.
Doors would open at 6:30. That'd be for the first show in the theater. Doors for that smaller room would open at 8. And at that point, whether you were walking by on the street, seeing our bar there all lit up and people having a great time, or you had seen the tens of thousands of dollars that we spend in advertising to get people to our shows and introduce them to new artists, you'd be coming, having a pretty good time all the way up until about midnight would probably be the latest. We are reasonable enough to assume that we might not be running both rooms simultaneously the first day we open, but we'd like to get to that point pretty soon.
Okay. So I see in what I'm going to call the bottom right-hand corner, it looks like some tables and what I would call, it looks like a bar service area. So is that where you would serve potentially lunch as well? And then if I came in there to see a show, I could probably sit there and have a drink an hour before the show as well?
Yeah, even the Farmers Market is a very popular event there downtown on Court Ave. I know we are seen as a nightclub because that tends to be when people want to see comedy. We're relegated to the nighttime. That being said, summer is a slower time for us, so we fully plan to open up those doors, let people get some AC, serve food during the farmers markets, adapt to the neighborhood that we're in. So that's kind of how we'd see it, because we see it as an opportunity for people to come in that maybe wouldn't think of comedy as a thing to do, coming in, seeing how we do our space, how we treat our customers, and hopefully that leads to them buying a ticket there for maybe a show later that night.
Got it. All right. Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, for this next part of the hearing, does anybody want to speak in support of the applicant's request? So we'll start with support. Anybody want to speak up? Going, yep, come on. No need to be shy. Just remind us, we need your name, address for the record.
Hello, I'm Deb Madison Levi. I live at 111 10th Street in downtown Des Moines, and I also serve on the board of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. So thank you for the opportunity to comment here. You've all received a letter from the Downtown Neighborhood Association and their members in support of this action. But as you've just heard from AJ and Dave, Teehee's Comedy Club has long worked with various community partners over the years, and their spirit of community collaboration and engagement is so welcomed. Their planned use of increased space will allow for additional community enrichment endeavors, and so we were very intrigued by that and learned a lot when we attended their community meeting this past Saturday. We support your work, board members, Zoning Board of Adjustment, and continue to appreciate the work that you do and, the consideration of the work of the Responsible Hospitality Institute as well as we work to help shape the future of Court Avenue. And this is near and dear to our hearts. The Downtown Neighborhood Association and their members collectively support approval of this agenda item. And we do have other members of the Downtown Neighborhood Association here as well, so thank you so much.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Deb. Appreciate your dedication and service to your association. Anybody else that wants to speak in support? Come on down.
I wish I would have done my hair.
Yeah.
Cold outside.
That's okay.
I
You're
just,
only going to be on TV.
My name's Kyle Pritchard. I'm owner-operator of Tonic on Court Avenue. Been there for 10 years now. Big fan of the comedy aspect. I think that's it. I'm in support.
Okay, glad to hear.
And I'm also a resident, 119 4th Street, Lofts. So,
Great. Thank you for coming down today. Anybody else to speak in support? He said Emily was right.
Hello. Brendan Kelly, 121 29th Court, West Des Moines. But I have a bar downtown called the Stuffed Olive, and we are also in support. We'd love to have a comedy club right around the corner, so I think that'd be good for downtown, and excited to have them. Hopefully you guys agree. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak in support? All right, do we have anybody to speak in opposition to the applicant's request? And as procedure, name, address, you've got 5 minutes.
My name is Larry Smithson, 212 4th Street, downtown. I'm not against the Teehee coming to Court Avenue, to 310 Court Building. I just want whoever comes in to have to follow the same rules that the variance board gave Larry Smithson, me. I have went through the Teehee proposal, and I see nothing that makes their proposal better than Larry Smithson's proposal. I was wanting to put in a game venue with games and host sporting events, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, etc. This is fun entertainment. I explained I was going to do food, but was worried about being able to meet 51%. I was only here to ask that I didn't have to do or meet 51% food because I didn't want to lie. I even called the manager of the 51 units above the 310 Spaghetti Works building and discussed with her what I was going to be with my operation, and she said she didn't think that was going to be any problem, and we exchanged phone numbers and said we'd agree to work together. Association people wanted a family place with food, a place families can go, and they did not want a loud bar. One of the biggest things, they didn't want the loud bar downtown. Now we have the Teehee proposal coming in, and I see the comedy as a crutch to get by the 51% food. Teehee Comedy Club with a little comedy. Number one, they are going to have, my question is going to be, are they going to have any DJ events that are limited to just a DJ event, which would make them clearly a bar? Will they be held to proposed hours and lunch that they're presenting, or is this just going to be all talk and then they get to do what they want to do? I hear a lot about live music, and to me, the live music, I've been in this business for 33 years, is one of the loudest things you can do. If you hear them warming up, pounding on the drums, you see all the stacks and stacks of stuff they carry in a big truck, amplified sound, and think this isn't going to be a problem for Court Avenue, somebody's being silly. It's not only going to be a problem for some of the Court Avenue, but the 51 units that's above. Apartments in the Spaghetti Works building location, the loud drums and amplified sound, I think will be a big problem. I would remind this board that the city was just dealing with the loud music at Woolies and was going after shutting Woolies down. And until a bunch of people got together and it was going to be such a big throwback to the city about supporting the live music, the city then backed off. But until then, they didn't want the loud music. I think and I would like to remind everybody that Woolies did not have 51 apartments above them. This is clearly just a bar. This is just purely a bar, period, with little comedy and some bands and theme parties. There's no difference between a little comedy and a fun game bar for the safety or unruly customers. You are telling me that 3 drinks with the comedy, somebody hearing comedy, and somebody playing games is the difference. Again, let Teehee's comedy, if you agree with the 51% food that was for me for a liquor license, I think clearly who's ever coming into this location should have to do 51% food. Just 60 days ago, I was denied because I come to you being honest and asked not to have to do 51% food. I hear no percentage restrictions or rules for what's coming in. Not ticket sales, not comedy. I have a few questions. Old flyers from Teehee's mentioned that they have local music shows, live music on Sundays. They also have Bad Bitch lined out bingo every Tuesday.
Larry,
Yes.
I'm going to give you another 30 seconds. You're about to exceed your time. I'll give you another 30 seconds as a courtesy.
That's fine. I keep hearing come in and see our bar on Farmers Market. All I am asking is, again, I'm not against Teehee's coming in. I just think they should have to follow the same rules that was put on me, or I think it's clearly a bias from the city of Des Moines. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else that wishes to speak in opposition or even in neutrality? Okay, seeing none, do we have further questions for city staff? Anybody? And/or Bert, is there anything you want to add?
I guess I would, just to respond to him, I would make it clear that our recommendation is subject to the first condition, being that any sale of alcohol has to be accessory to an assembly and entertainment use. And I guess the zoning enforcement officer will be watching, like, as we put on all conditional uses, if there's a problem, if it becomes a nuisance, the zoning enforcement officer can do their homework and investigate it. And if it's ever determined that it's no longer primarily an assembly and entertainment use, then that would be a violation of our recommended conditions. So.
And Bert, since you're there, they had a nice scale drawing showing the 2 performance theaters, larger, smaller, a kitchen, a small bar service area. If we said that one of the conditions is that the renovation and general use of the floor plan shall be similar to what was provided by the applicant during the hearing.
Yeah. If the board's inclined, you could make the condition that they follow this floor plan. You can make it a condition that they have a full kitchen or a full menu for food service anytime the business is open. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Anybody else since Bert's up? Anything else? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Bert. So applicant, you've got up to 3 minutes. AJ, Dave, if you want to give any closing comments or rebuttal, you get the last word on this one.
Really don't want to disparage anything Larry had to say up here. I mean, it's not really my style. I just want to clarify a few of his points for both him and for the committee. There is little doubt in my mind that we're going to exceed 51% with ticket sales and food. Our ticket sales are going to be variable based on the artist that comes in, because frankly, that's what it takes to get Shane Gillis to come to your club, or or Bill Burr to come to your club. I mean, you can't sit there and say it's $20 for every show that you do. So there's going to be some variability there. We're probably going to have, when we're banging on all cylinders, we'll have 4 shows a night, 2 in the small, 2 in the big, all ticketed. So the likelihood of alcohol sales exceeding ticket sales and food is pretty low. As far as the sound is concerned, our old location, we did that as an accommodation to start with as far as music was concerned. Some venues were closing down, some artists were homeless. From a performance standpoint, our Sunday show is pretty low key. It's mostly a bunch of guys like me trying picking around on a guitar. These are not professional musicians per se. With regards to the building itself and the sound, we've instructed RDG that the sound barrier, for lack of a better term, in the architectural drawing is key. We are as insistent on that as we are with any of the other conditions for the site drawing, and so to the extent that we have to comply with that, or with the rendering that we've given you, that is the plan as of today. So just wanted to clarify those things for you.
I got a quick question.
Yes,
Yeah.
Dave. Dave to Dave.
So you've got basically 3 venues inside the building. You got the bar.
Yeah.
And the small and the big.
Right.
What's the capacity of your bar? I mean, it's not very big.
Maybe 60.
So you're not going to have, if you have 2 shows in the big theater.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be sitting in the bar waiting to get in the big theater with everyone else that's got a ticket, because there's not going to be enough room.
There's not going to be a lot of room.
So
there.
you're going to probably do a great job of supporting some of the other businesses that are
Yes.
down there as people go to eat
Yeah.
and come down for the show.
Yeah.
If I'm at the late show, I may stop somewhere and have a cocktail. I may stop somewhere and have a meal.
Yep.
And come to your place.
That is the hope. I mean,
So-
as much as I want my business to be successful and to be packed out every night, we are hoping that the spillover to the other remaining business, such as Court Avenue Brew across the street, been there a long time. I used to go there in the 90s when I was a young staff accountant working downtown. Tonic, Green Olive, or Stuffed Olive rather, the sushi bar that's right next door. We're hoping all these businesses get additional or incremental revenue as a result of us being there.
And people find them because they came down to yours to begin with.
100%.
They go, I didn't even know that was down there.
Yeah, we find when AJ was talking about people from all over the world, that was not an exaggeration. We have people who are visiting, for work or whatever, they're looking for something to do. They popped in at their club and they loved it. And so, but they also found the Walnut, which was a restaurant down the street. They found Exile Kitty Corner from us. I mean, all the businesses benefited from us being there.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Cool. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Dave.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll close the public portion and go to board deliberation. Again, we're looking at a conditional use here for an assembly entertainment use. That's what the conditional use would be for. And I just want to lead off by saying that this is the evolution of direction that Court Avenue needs to remain a vibrant, unique center of attraction for our residents and our visitors. We've had city studies that have said the district needs to be more diverse and not just be bars. With what I see here, this is the kind of first-class stuff that I wanted to see for a long time in the central city, in downtown, on Court Avenue. And when I see this drawing to scale, where you know what the heck they're trying to do, and I can pick right out, in item number 1, the primary use of the premise shall be for assembly and entertainment. Sure looks like it to be when we've got 2 places for seating and stages. This is what I like to see from applicants. I'm pleased with what's here. And I think we'd have plenty of conditions on this to help guide this along. So I'm interested in thoughts from my colleagues here. I'm not making any motions
I think
at the time.
this will be it seems like it'd be a really positive move for Court Avenue. It will increase traffic in the best way in terms of driving patrons to other bars and restaurants. It'll add vibrancy. It'll be something different, which is desperately needed on Court Avenue and in that district. And I'm very much in favor of a conditional use permit.
Great.
I'm in favor also.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I think everyone's spoken, or
Yep.
anyone else has anything, but no, I'll make a motion for staff.
And I'm going to jump in and second your motion, but with a friendly amendment. I'd like to add an item 9 that within this conditional use, the assembly and entertainment space shall be developed generally in accordance with the ratio of uses illustrated and described by the applicant. So we know what we're getting down here. That's as far as I feel we need to take it, so that would be an item 9 addition. Is that clear enough for our attorney and staff for the record? Okay. So that'd be second with item 9, that they'll develop it in accordance with the plan they've shown and described. So we got motion by Dave, second by me. All those in favor to grant the requested conditional use subject to the conditions presented, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Okay, so that concludes item number 12. We have one item of business left for today, item 13, an amendment request to conditional use at 207 4th Street. And Bert's going to present on that one.
Yes. All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board, again, Bert Drost, planning staff for the city of Des Moines. Item number 13 is a request to amend an existing conditional use for an existing bar, also in the Court Avenue Entertainment District. This subject property is located at 207 4th Street on the east side of 4th Street, just to the north of Court Avenue. They were granted a conditional use for a bar back in 2019. At that time, the conditional use, and I'll show you the conditions shortly, but it was granted for a 1,000 square foot bar on the first floor of the building. And there was several conditions, including one that required them to have food service anytime the business is open. They're now wanting to revise the layout of the building so that it would occupy approximately 750 square feet of area on the first floor of the building, 1,600 square feet of area in the basement, and then up to 300 square feet within an outdoor patio. So again, like I said, the subject property is located on the east side of 4th Street, just to the north of Court Avenue. For point of reference, the last item was just to the southeast of the site. Here are some photos. It's in the neat historic building. And I believe the patio would be located in this recessed area. If you've ever walked on 4th Street, you'll see that there's a recessed area kind of down below the sidewalk. So here's a floor plan of what they're proposing. Again, the approved bar allowed them to occupy up to 1,000 square feet of space within the main level of the building, and they're now wanting to more than double the size of the building to occupy also a portion of the basement. So I'll show you the conditions that were applied back in 2019. Again, they were allowed to use up to 1,000 square feet. And the first condition was any business selling alcoholic liquor, wine, or beer shall have a kitchen and offer a full menu for food service at all times that the business is open to customers. So then the rest of the conditions were just the standard conditions that we still apply. Staff does understand the plight of the business owner to kind of reconfigure itself within that existing building. We didn't get a lot of police reports for that business, so we believe that the business has been operating appropriately. So we have recommended approval to allow them to reconfigure, but you'll see we do have some conditions. One, we do recommend that it be limited to 1,000 square feet. Again, that would allow them to occupy a portion of the first floor and a portion of the basement. We understand that they actually have started some renovations that, so it would be appropriate. We just felt that limiting it to 1,000 square feet is really in keeping again with these plans I referenced earlier that really say that the Court Avenue District needs a more diverse mix of businesses and entertainment options in the Court Avenue. Yes, this is an appropriate place for some bars, so we're not saying, this bar shouldn't be allowed at all. We're just saying that it should generally be the same size as what they're already approved for. And then that other condition I mentioned on food service, we have recommended a similar condition. We've let them have two options though. One, that they either have a kitchen and offer a full menu for food service during all business hours, which is what the existing conditional use requires. But then we also said that maybe if they don't want to maintain a kitchen, they could just maintain a standing relationship with a restaurant or business. And I believe this was taken from the Tonic Bar, which we talked about earlier today on Court Avenue. This is a condition that they have to apply. But the rest of the conditions are just the standard conditions. So we'll go through the public input. We did get, I believe, 13 cards in opposition, 10 in support. And again, the notices that went out were, for the full expansion that they're proposing, which was again 750 square feet on the main level, 1,600 square feet on the lower level, and the patio. So at least 10 people did offer support to that. All right, and these are the 10 cards in support. And this was the summary of their neighborhood outreach. This was the notice they sent for their meeting held on December 10th. And then the summary. And I'll let the applicant discuss this if they choose. But that concludes my presentation. So were there any questions for me?
Questions for Bert? So Bert, as I read this, the applicant's proposing moving some things around and expanding. You're okay with them moving some things around but not expanding. So
Right.
if I did my basic math, they want to have up to over 2,600 square feet of, quote, bar space, and you're saying, well, no, just 1,000's enough. Is that right?
Correct. Right.
Okay.
And that's really in keeping with these documents that say, we really have enough bars. So.
Right. Okay, I've got you.
Yeah, I don't know that I mentioned it, but our recommendation is also that there be no outdoor patio service.
There not be any outdoor
not be any
patio service.
patio service.
That's a question, I did have a note on that. Do we have any other bars that have outdoor patio space on 4th Street between Walnut and Court, to the best of your knowledge?
I believe, I don't know if it's the Royal Mile, one of those has a patio in the alley.
In the alleyway?
Former alley.
Okay. Okay, and would this be proposed to be on the street curb versus an alleyway?
Would be in that recessed area out in front of the building, if you remember. From
Okay,
the photos,
down
there's that
the low
recess.
area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And maybe the applicant knows this, but if I'm correct, this is the old Hawkeye Insurance Building that's maybe the oldest building still standing on downtown Des Moines? I think so?
I believe so.
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
It's a really neat building, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so they're not proposing to put anything on the sidewalk outside of the black wrought iron there or
Right,
whatever?
right.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Bert? Have you reviewed the staff rec with the applicant?
Frank, I know Frank sent it to them, but I don't know that Frank
Okay,
heard.
all right. We'll let the applicant talk, so they can cover that part. Thank you. Okay, applicant or representative of the applicant. We just need your name, address. You got up to 10 minutes. Present your case.
Cool. Okay. Caleb Rizzuti, co-owner of Bomb Bar at 209 4th Street. I appreciate the time to talk about the expansion today. So for those of you who may not know, we've been operating for about 3 years now. We have a pretty perfect record, 0 police, 0 problems, 0 fights. We've worked hard on creating a safe environment for people to come to. And then for as of right now, we do not serve food, but we're fortunate to have an agreement with Bernardo's Burritos that is next to us that was in the space that we want to move down to now. They've moved upstairs, so they're about 10 feet away from us. And we have an agreement with them to have a full menu where people can bring that stuff in. And then with the expansion of the basement, a lot of that 1,600 feet is storage, bathrooms, so it's not all usable like bar space. It's just going to be a couple rooms. And then with that, we want to add more entertainment for people, so pool tables, dartboards, just anything that, you know, isn't just all about drinking. We do like theme menus, so on Halloween, our Halloween menu does fairly well. We have a holiday menu going right now that's inspired by the Grinch, which is doing pretty well. So we just have things like that going on. And then we also work with a lot of local artists. We feature them on our walls. We do art shows. My business partner's wife is in the dance and arts, so we do a lot of events for them where they can come and hang out and talk about what's going on. And then as for the space, like we don't want to overwhelm it. We just want to have the ability to do a little bit more. And then like I said, like a lot of that space is bathroom and storage area for the upstairs and the downstairs. And then there's also like a lot of dead space in there with like closets and stuff. And then just to kind of reiterate with the food part of it, we don't really want to compete with that. We want to keep our relationship going with Bernardo's. We have a letter from her saying that our business helped her out a lot with the COVID and everything, that she doesn't have a lunch crowd anymore, so a lot of our crowd feeds into that. And then I think that's about all we got. If you have any questions, I'd love to take
Questions? No? Any questions? Just a couple scenarios here. Did staff discuss their staff recommendation with you? I don't know if they always do that, but you know, staff saying, well, if you want to move some stuff around in the building, we don't care, but it needs to stay within the 1,000 square feet.
No, I wasn't aware of the 1,000 square feet.
Okay, which is what you're permitted for now. If we can go back to their drawing there, if this board said, well, if you want to do some stuff in the lower level and some stuff in the upper level, we don't really care, but keep it within that 1,000 square feet, what would that do to you? I haven't added up how many square feet are in the upper level, how many's in the lower level, vice versa.
Like just 1,000 square feet overall?
Yep, if you just had 1,000 square feet to play with in that building, what would that do for you?
Well, I mean, the upstairs is 750 of it right there.
Okay.
So,
got it.
Yeah, what we're asking is if we can expand down to the basement, get a little bit more room and the ability to, you know, give 4th Street a little bit more to do.
Because if I read your proposal, you were at 1,000 square feet, and you'd want to go to over 2,600, is that right? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm just trying to conceptualize this here.
I mean, the usable space is not 2,600 square feet.
But I think staff assumes that storage space, closet space for kegs and clean, that all ties in because it's part of the use of the bar. It's not the service area, right? Yeah. And maybe staff can help us with that later. And could you explain the use of the, I don't know what you want to call it, the recessed area or the patio? It's 5 foot by 20 foot? What do you want to have out there?
There's just a couple tables out there just for a little outdoor space.
Okay.
It'd be good for like farmer's market. We do a lot of stuff for that during the summer.
And how do people access that space? Can they access it from the street, or do they got to go inside and then walk out?
They'll have to come in the building, go downstairs, and then there's 2 entrances. So there's one on the lower level and one on the top level.
And do you think that space was historically just what, so for air and light for the lower level, or
yeah,
some kind of, okay. Because you are in a very old building, right?
Oldest one downtown?
There we go. Okay, that's what I thought. Hawkeye building for Hawkeye Insurance, right? Yeah. Yeah, that kind of be a question for me. It's a pretty big lift to say, hey, I want to expand my bar over 2.5 times. What if we were inclined to say no more than 1,500 square feet? I mean, that'd be 50% larger than what you have now. I know it's a very small footprint overall.
Can I defer? Can I ask a question?
Well, yeah, there's not a lot of, I mean, this is just a question I have for you, not necessarily a negotiation. But yeah, again, you're asking for 2,600 square feet. That's 2.5 times what you got now. If we say no, you can still operate within your 1,000 square feet. You could talk. You were supposed to operate just on the one level, I think, with the conditional use as it stood.
What? So you're saying that can we operate with 1,500?
Yeah, if it was between 2 levels and a maximum of 1,500 square feet.
Well, no, the whole basement is one room.
Right. Okay, I got it. Because not just tables down there, you'd still need a bar, the 37 by 17, you'd need your 30 by 17 for the tables, etc. Okay. All right, I just want to check. Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, all right, we'll see what the rest of the audience has to say. We'll check back with you in a few minutes. Thank you. All right, anybody to speak here in support of the applicant's request? Just need your name, address, and you got up to 5 minutes. Afternoon.
Chris Smithson, 3915 Southwest 13. I think this is a pretty easy decision. We've already been here with the Highland Park just 2 things ago. So the basement there is similar to the Highland Park thing. It's pretty much unusable for anything else. Bernardo's had to move upstairs to get more customers. The patio is basically a pit. There's no way into it, whatever else. So the little people that would straggle from inside to outside is minimal. I mean, you can see in the photos, it's just not that big. So with the Highland Park issues that all got brought up, I think it's pretty close to the same thing. I don't really understand, I don't know the conflict, I guess, here. And that will do it.
Okay, appreciate your comments. Thank you, Chris. Anybody else to speak in support of the applicant's request? The camera's gone.
I guess I'm in support of it for sure because...
Just name and address again.
Oh, so Kyle Pritchard, 210 Court Avenue.
Thank you, Kyle.
I'm also a resident, as I said before, 119 4th Street, Unit 404, which is also in vicinity of all this. And I've lived there for 6 years. Has any of you been in this space? If you're sitting, like the diagram makes it look so big. I've been in, and if you're sitting at a bar chair, you're pushing them out of the way to get to the other bar chair. So it's astonishing to me to say you're doubling space when right there you only got 8 to 10 people at that bar, and then you got, if you've been in the space, they have a dartboard upstairs right now that takes up a general big space. I know you can put more tables there, but they don't want more tables, they want more space to perform the pool and the darts and all that. So, and then when you get downstairs, I've been coming into this establishment long before it was Bomb Bar or when it was Bernardo's, and the bathroom area is huge in the foyer of the bathroom, and then you go into the bathrooms. It's a doorway to go into that storage area on the bottom level. So I'm just like, and then I've been there, Bernardo's, same thing. That bar area looks giant on this diagram where it's a couple people deep at best. Anyways, I'm super in for, and I enjoy Caleb as a young business owner, as a younger business owner, and 10 years in the making. I love his, I just love his vibrance for the younger crowd. He's young, and he's bringing in that to downtown also. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again for your comments. Anybody else to speak in support?
Brendan Kelly again, Stuffed Olive, 216 Court Avenue, right around the corner from Bomb Bar. I understand the resistance and hesitancy of bars opening up on Court Avenue. I've been down there a long time, 20 years now. These guys aren't what we're worried about. They run a tight ship, good crowd, never had an issue with them, never even heard of an issue with them. I don't think we want to get rid of all bars downtown. We've gotten rid of a lot of them, but we still need some entertainment down there. And I think these guys are a good example of what we want. If it's just going to be a bar, I think they're a good example of what we want down there. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you for your heartfelt comments. Anybody else to speak in support?
Hello, Andrew Smithson, in support, actually his business partner, but I didn't want to wait for the rebuttal. Just clarify on a few things. I'm sure all of you can see this. Patio space as outlined on the sheet said 300, obviously 20 by 5 is 100. I think they're including the exit side on the other. Really what we love that patio for, obviously too small to serve off of. It's not, we've got 4 tables, it's standing space. We're half level up if you enter right now into our main level. Anybody wanting to smoke a cigarette, step outside. They're either on the sidewalk, which is small, or on our stairs, hindering entry, exit. Just not an overall good look. That patio space being down there will allow people to go out, have a smoke, talk to somebody without congestion of any type. That's a great positive. All these measurements, I'm the one that took them. I'm the one that turned them in. They're all on the big side. I mean, if you sit and look at these, obviously stairs take up space, big areas. I didn't want to nitpick and get down to, we have exactly, like you were mentioning, the 1,500. I could probably measure it and get it there, especially in the places we're going to use. Downstairs on this diagram right by in front of where the restrooms are in 6 by 11 area, there's going to be a dartboard there. Kind of like he mentioned, games like that, pool tables, it takes up a big area of space. We're not trying to get bigger for capacity per se. We don't want more people. We do, but we're not trying to become this. We're not trying to become this huge business. All these people. We want to be able to offer more to who we've already earned as customers. One of the favorite thing we hear from anybody, the age range from 21 years old, clear past 40. They feel comfortable. It's not too loud. It's not, no DJ, no set-aside dance space. I mean, if you want to dance in the area you got, please do it. Please have a good time. One of the few bars I've ever been to, people kind of break out in song. It's not a karaoke bar, but people are comfortable having a good time. So I would definitely like to speak, like you're saying, can we find a number? Can I actually like show where the real size is and kind of, obviously that sounds crazy. It sounds huge. It's just not. I mean, I'd love for you to step in there and kind of see it and feel it. It's just, it's a good thing. We really want to expand. We want to have those 2 restrooms. Having one unisex bathroom to roughly 50 capacity was rough. You kind of got that line of people waiting for the bathroom right in front of the bar. So this is just going to give us a better flow, a little bit of growth. And yeah, I mean, we just want to continue growing, doing the same thing we've been doing. Just a positive part of 4th Street. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andrew. All right, speaking in support, anybody else? Okay, anybody want to speak in opposition? Seeing none, even neutrality? Okay. Staff, further questions for staff? I might have just one brief one. And to keep things moving here. Bert, I didn't see anything about crime, no big deal.
Right, yeah, like I said.
At the bar around the area.
There aren't any police reports attributed to this business.
Thank you. And if somebody just wanted to use the patio area for a non-service area, like just smoking or something, does that count under your conditional use?
I don't believe it would if it's just for smoking, if there's no service occurring on.
Okay, and the service would mean waitress doesn't come out and take drink orders
Right,
or.
exactly, right.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, Bert, are you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Ask him.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Why are we hung up on 1,000 feet?
Just because, as you remember, 2 months ago, we were pretty set on not adding bars, not expanding bars, so we're trying to hold to that same rationale.
So are we going to, I mean, I think we're splitting hairs here. And I think we got an existing operator that's got great support from his competitors and other people. And I'm all about giving people an opportunity. And if they take that and they take advantage of it and they hang themselves, shame on them.
Right.
All right. When we discuss that, that's great. But anything else for Bert?
Yeah, I have a question for.
Yes. Sure. Cuckoo.
So, as far as 1,000 square feet between 2 floors, how is that defined? How is that controlled?
As staff, we were leaving it up to them to figure out how they could most efficiently use that 1,000 square feet. We didn't want to hold them to, oh, you have to have 750 on one floor, 250 on the other. We're letting them.
And my question maybe is more enforcement, right? So if they decide to split 500 square feet between the 2 floors,
right?
Is it a defined area, or bar service can only happen within this 500 square feet?
Sure. When they get their liquor license, they would have to demonstrate that they comply with the conditional use when they get their liquor license renewed. So at that time, the zoning inspectors that reviewed the liquor license application would check their floor plan to make sure that it's matching whatever square foot the board ultimately decides today.
Okay.
Going back in time on this, 1,000 square feet at the time was because I'm assuming the proposal and the approval was just for the single main floor use.
Right. At the time, Bernardo's was in the basement, and they were only operating.
That was it.
Going to be operating on the first floor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else for staff? Okay. All right. I don't know that we had any opposition, but if you want to say anything in closing, Caleb, you can if you want. Or partner, Andrew. Less than 3 minutes.
Yeah. Andrew Smithson again. I guess all I would add, you touched on it with a few other people prior, but the city did okay. All of the engineering plans, everything that we had passed through to do this project, to put these stairs in, that all went good and fine. Just basically adding that. Appreciate everybody's time. Yeah.
All right. Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
All right. We'll close the public portion and go to board deliberation. So, anybody got any initial thoughts?
How much more space do they want?
Well, they'd like, I think, 2,650 square feet as their proposal stated.
And
yeah,
we're not even clear on how functional a space is as
Yeah.
far as use, if there's steps in the way and everything, if there's stairways and there's, so.
I was just trying to put it in
No,
proportion.
no, I got it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Here
not,
again,
I'm not super hung up on the square footage.
Right. I think we've got a good operator here, and I think we've got an opportunity here to help some guys continue to be successful. Let's give them a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's a new bar. It's an existing operation that's just expanded a little bit.
Yeah. I do give
So
credit.
we're not
to-
adding a
yeah.
bar.
No, and I do give credit to staff. They don't want to see expansion of bar uses.
Right.
We're trying to expand into other entertainment and other experiences. The biggest thing after listening to the applicant, yes, it's a very small space. And it would probably be hard to only expand in the basement for 250 square feet. I don't really necessarily care about the square footage here, but I'm not a fan of the sunken patio thing. If we were inclined to approve this, I would like that not to be used as a service area. That'd be about my only hang-up.
Okay, so then why don't you make a motion for that? And I'll second. This has been a long.
I've made enough motions today. I want to make you guys earn your keep here, because we're paid a lot.
Well, I'll make a motion, and let's give them what they're asking for. And I don't know what, let's strike this square footage thing, let's take the patio and make it a smoking space.
Is that clear enough for the record?
Well, that's, if we can make that a condition, can't we, Bert?
Yeah.
It-
2650 square feet.
Okay, and how about the patio? Let's not call it a patio, can we call it the smoking area?
Well, if it's
Or
not
just-
if it's not a service area, it's not part of the necessary for the
So
conditional
there'd be no
use.
service, it's just,
It currently says no service.
Okay.
okay,
Okay.
so it can still be used.
So if
that
Dave,
clear?
if you've got a proposal, so you'd move approval of the requested amendment to the conditional use, but under item 1, they can expand up to what then, 2,600 square feet?
Yeah,
However, no outdoor patio service.
correct,
Okay, then I'll second that motion.
perfect.
Okay, all right, all those in favor to grant the amended conditional use, subject to staff recommendation and the amendments proposed therein, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 7-0. Okay. You don't get everything you want for Christmas, but hopefully you get most. Okay, that's what I want. All right, I appreciate everybody's patience today. Thank you very much. And 2 business items. I do want to state for the record, if somebody disagrees with the city ordinances that we're enjoined to carry out, you need to talk to your council people. As our attorney said, we're not a legislative body. We don't make the laws. So if there's anything you see that you don't like, we've sent letters before to the council, they've taken action. So, just saying. Anybody that was here last month that reviewed the minutes, if there's any changes, so speak. If none, would there be a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Marlis. I'm giving that to Cuckoo. All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye. Motion carries 7-0, thank you. All right, this hearing is adjourned.